So, how about that Majora's Mask stream today?
It was a good stream.
Thank you for sharing that video earlier as well with the mask from E3.
Okay, that was such a funny video.
I totally forgot about that.
Yes, Daniel's name is Burger. I think I can actually switch it over now. You guys can see us. So here we are, everyone. Yeah. Were you guys able to hear an echo from Daniel and Rick? Or no? The faster we get a yes or a no, the quicker we can go on.
They're saying no echo, sounds
No
good,
echo.
etc. etc.
All good.
All good in the neighborhood.
Okay, so I got this guy's email.
Oh.
It's not showing on my computer, but I'm going to try to look at it on my phone. Yeah, David, the picture you sent is just all black on my computer and the phone.
F.
See if I can download it.
Thank
Okay,
you.
I'm going to switch the... Yeah, I downloaded it and it's still just a big black picture.
Maybe you're zoomed in really, really far to just one really dark pixel.
Yeah,
You have to
it's just
zoom
the
out.
text.
Yeah, it's just like the dot of an eye.
So, really quick, does everyone hear Daniel, Rick, and I? Okay.
Yeah, everyone in the chat was saying the audio
Quit
looks
chit-chatting,
good.
bros.
So.
Yeah.
Obviously, they have no idea what the podcast is.
That's what podcasts are.
It's chit-chatting.
Mm-hmm.
Tell me why.
Tell me why.
If it's on your phone or something, David, just like take a screenshot of it from your phone.
Mm-hmm.
Instead of sending the actual picture, just send like the screenshot from your phone of it to see if it'll show up that way. Because if it's something interesting, then we can talk about it and we'll give you our ideas about it. And yeah, like you asked in the chat. Otherwise, we are about to begin. All right, everyone earlier said they could not hear an echo. So I guess that's good. I'm still going to try to mute my microphone when I can. All right, so everybody ready?
Yep.
All right.
Yes, sir.
So, everyone watching, remember, you can super chat, have your questions answered immediately, or you can wait and... Yes, Daniel?
Speaking of which, we got a super chat. Actually, speaking of the devil,
Perfect example.
it's Hylian Luke. Exactly, perfect example. I'm gonna read it here, Jesse. Hylian Luke says, "Before you start,
Okay.
I have a question. In Four Swords Adventures, in the Desert of Doubt, there is a symbol of a bird in the sand just before Gerudo Village. Do you think this is proof that the Rito existed in a child timeline?"
Inconclusive.
That is inconclusive. I mean, we don't see them, but depending on what you think, where you think Breath of the Wild falls. But like, at the very least, they wouldn't be the same Rito as Wind Waker. Very inconclusive. I don't know. He put $10. I don't want to like just be like, I don't know. You know. You know? Thanks for $10. I don't know.
If you couple that with the textured images in
Twilight
in Twilight
HD.
Princess and the walkway to Hyrule Castle, then Maybe.
Yeah.
Actually, that's a good point.
Maybe it's
so-
possible.
In the chat, real quick, Throwaway
Yeah.
McCase says, "Dude, $10 to ask a question. Laugh out loud. What the heck?" So that's not even near the most expensive or biggest super chat we had, and it wasn't even for a question. It was like,
But no, it doesn't necessarily cost $10. That's just
Yeah.
how much Luke decided to generously throw our way to be
Yeah.
a supportive bro.
but
'Cause
someone
Luke
once
is
gave,
good like that.
yeah, Holly actually gave 400 or 500 Canadian,
Hmm.
and she didn't even ask a question.
No, that was just hype because it was the 100th episode.
Oh yeah. All right, so
Yeah.
I'm gonna keep an eye out to see if that dude emails me to see if he had anything or if that was just like a weird message he sent. But yeah, all right. So everyone has the Google Doc.
See.
All right.
Yep.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to episode 125 of our Zelda podcast, the Hylian Gamescast. On this episode, we will be discussing the Zelda 35th anniversary rumors, debunking some of the rumors, and giving our thoughts on the probable credibility of some of the other rumors. We're going to be talking about the Nintendo Switch Pro as hinted by Nintendo themselves, as well as something else that kind of puts more weight to the Switch Pro coming sooner rather than later. And both of these about the Switch Pro are actual news, not rumor or speculation. So look forward to that. The third topic is a rumor on N64 and other consoles coming to the Switch, not as a virtual console, but something else. This actually, I learned from our friend Nintendo Prime, or Nate, who will be joining us later in about 10-15 minutes or so. And then we have some new Zelda anime comments from a well-known director of video game stuff. So, and then we will be answering your questions. So again, look forward to that. Our special guest is Rick. Go ahead, say hi, Rick. We're RMFH.
What's up, everybody? How you doing?
All right. He'll be joining Daniel and I, as I mentioned. Chiblima was supposed to join us, but she was busy. So later, Nintendo Prime will be filling her spot, as I mentioned. You can follow us on Twitter or Instagram and everyone's own YouTube or Twitch channels. And everything else we mentioned can be found below in the description. You can find the audio version of the podcast and a lot of our other episodes, like our interviews with the different champions from Breath of the Wild, or Grant Kirkhope was a really fun interview that you guys should go check out. So you can find those on iTunes under the Hylian Gamescast. If you leave us a review, we will give you a shout out and read it at the beginning of every podcast episode. We're going to start doing that again, reading reviews and giving shout outs as a way to say thank you for the people that do leave reviews. You can support us on Patreon at patreon.com/GameOverJesse for your name to appear on screen before and after the podcast, as well as most of the normal videos we do. And you can get a shout out at the beginning of each podcast, like we'll get to here in just a second, as well as have your topic, news, rumor, top 10 list, or theory discussed by us as one of our topics, or guarantee your question will be answered and, again, get a shout out at the end of the podcast during our Zelda mailbag. You can also purchase a shirt, jacket, or other merch on Teespring at gameoverjesse.creator-spring.com. You can tag us on Twitter or Instagram, or send a picture of you wearing one of our shirts or jackets for a retweet and to be included in our future Twitter and Instagram posts, as well as appear wearing it with others at the end of every video we make. If you guys see the outro, there's usually pictures of a bunch of people wearing our shirts as a thank you to them, putting them in the video. We will also answer your questions or discuss your theory or news topic for each shirt or merch you purchase and send us a picture of. So for our Patreon supporters, thank you to Lorenzo Merrill, our newest Patreon. I hope I pronounced that correctly. Manboy Cave, Justin Clark, Monica Spath, Shadow to Us, Andre May? I don't know how to pronounce that. I apologize. Natsu, who's been very active recently, Rusty Caulfield, Zoe M, Candy, Ashton, BKRS7, Blargnar, Chad Costin, Derek Grant, Gus Calvo, Jesse, Larulian Sheep, and Lovable Christie. Again, links to everyone's YouTube, Twitch, Twitter, and other social medias, as well as everything mentioned previously, should all be in the description. With all of that out of the way, let's begin. Daniel.
Okay, Jesse, to
Yes.
begin, there's another super chat.
Okay, cool.
All right. $5. Takers610 asked, been watching your Majora's Mask videos. I'm not sure which one. Well, we've all had Majora's Mask videos, actually, so I'm not sure whose, but I'm sure they're all worth watching. And had no idea the 3DS remake changed so much of the game. If we get it on Switch, would you want a 64 or 3DS version? Oh, I'll go last because you'll probably all know my answer.
Yeah, so really quick to go along with that, Daniel has a really good series on his channel. You can find the full playlist where he doesn't just go through the dungeons, but the like a walkthrough guide on how you get to the dungeon, as well as it's not just like a normal walkthrough or a strategy guide or let's play. He gives a lot of theory and lore as he plays through the dungeon, and he compares the 3DS version to the N64 versions as well. So it's like a comparison between the different versions of the game. You get lore, theory stuff, as well as just like a really concise walkthrough. And Rick, Daniel and I was actually in his chat earlier today watching him play through Majora's Mask. He's on his way to Stone Tower Temple, one of my favorite dungeons. But
Same here.
To answer your question, Rick, do you want to go first?
Well, I think we all might be on the same page here, but the N64, I'm playing it right now.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah, all the way. It just the changes that they made, and Daniel is the one that really opened my eyes to this. You know, going back and playing. You know, you don't really notice the little things until they're right in front of your face. But yeah, really for those reasons alone.
Jesse, what about you?
Yeah, so with Majora's Mask, Wind Waker, Twilight Princess, Ocarina of Time, even Link's Awakening to some extent, every time they've gone back to remaster or remake a Zelda game, Aonuma and others say that they view it as a way to correct issues that they personally had or that fans had with the games. So like fans complained about the long and tedious Triforce chart quest in Wind Waker or the Tears of Light segments in Twilight Princess being too long. And because of those complaints, Nintendo listened to the fans, went in, and shortened those segments. They even gave us a faster sailcloth, which was originally removed from the game. So they added in content that was originally planned but left out, although it went by a different name. So I think if Nintendo does bring over the 3DS games, they'll do something similar, but in this case, it'll be more like, instead of trying to fix what they thought was messed up, it'll be them going back to add back in those stuff from the original N64 versions. So like the way the Zoras swim, the Deku skip and hop on water, all that stuff, I think they could end up fixing all of that due to fan complaints, because all of the stuff that fans complained about before are things they fixed, And even with Skyward Sword, even though the entire purpose of that game was to be with motion control, and 𝐓𝐼𝐢 came out several times saying it would be impossible to make Skyward Sword without motion controls, they still did it. So yeah. Daniel, what about you?
Well, as I'm sure anyone who's watched my Majora's Mask videos is going to know right away that I'm going to say the N64 version, because for those videos I played literally both versions. Like, I would play them in tandem to sort of, flesh out my scripts and everything, and just the more I played them, the more I leaned to the N64 version as my preferred one. And there are good things about the 3DS version, and sure, like the graphics look way better and all that, and that's fine. But the gameplay changes are so like game breaking to me. And yeah, like Jesse mentioned, the Zora swimming and the boss fight changes all feel kind of just like watered down and dumbed down. A lot of the game feels dumbed down to me. Like, they'll change a puzzle or just like move a switch to a certain spot, or things like just little things like that, and it just feels like so like almost belittling.
Hold on, Daniel.
Like, it's like,
Super chat.
Good Lord, why did they have to change the ice arrows?
Yeah.
the ice arrows. Why?
So
Why?
super chat.
Oh,
It was Daniel's
Yes.
videos. Twin mold fight Link Smash.
I hate the twin mold
From
fight in the 3DS
Taker
version.
610. Sorry to interrupt you,
go-
guys, but since it was a super chat, I wanted to go ahead
Yeah.
and
Totally.
yeah.
Yeah. Thank you, Taker. Yeah, it's definitely like, it feels a lot like it was just like they really watered it down. And that's the thing, is like Ocarina of Time 3D, I barely mention that in my Ocarina of Time videos, because I feel like most of the changes made to that game were mostly just, like visual updates or things that weren't intrusive to the game, but enhancements like iron boots changing and things like that. And same with, I'm now working on Wind Waker, and like the changes made to Wind Waker HD, for example. Improvements, enhancements. But the problem is, the changes with Majora's Mask are always like they're stripping away things to replace them with more accessible things. And like, in my mind, the whole thing with Majora's Mask is it's the sequel to Ocarina of Time. It feels designed for people who already beat that game, so they already know the base mechanics of Zelda. So it should be more difficult, and it should be more challenging. It should make you stop and think about what you're doing. And the 3DS version just feels like they were really trying to just I don't know, really water it down and make it as quote unquote accessible. But my analogy in my video was, I said Majora's Mask 3D tried to be more accessible by like reining you in and showing you this is the correct method and only do it this way. Whereas like Breath of the Wild is more accessible because it lets you do it any way you want. And that's where I think they went wrong with that remake. So yes,
Where they
thank you
really
for the
went wrong.
questions.
Not enough fishing ponds.
I like fishing in Zelda. Do not get me wrong, but the 3-day time limit really makes fishing feel like, I don't know, like I when I play through that game, I'm efficient, man. I like
stressful.
literally, I like plan out my side quests, like, and I'm like, if I can do like 3 side quests in this 3-day cycle, if I do this first and then I go back over, I do this part of this side quest and I go back and finish this side quest and I go, and like I feel like I got a roadmap of that game going, and the fishing hole, just like, it feels like such a pointless time sink compared to the other side quests, because the other side quests are at least about helping people, I don't know. I digress. I'm sorry.
No, you're good. So speaking of Majora's Mask, they have the really cool first 4 figures
It's so beautiful.
statue.
Beautiful.
They have
Beautiful.
this one, which I think's 11 or 12 inches, including the spikes. And then they have one that's life-sized. Oh, Raid. Okay, cool. So
Whoa.
Nate, Nintendo Prime, said he would raid us when he joined in. So
Here it comes.
Hey.
he came just in time.
Speaking of him coming just
There
in
he
time,
is.
the man himself.
Yes, Nate,
Legend.
welcome.
Now Nate has to answer the question.
I have arrived. All right.
I did not expect that at all.
That'll give you a heart attack quick.
Yeah. Nate, since you just showed
Can-
up, you have to
Can you
answer
turn
this
your
question
mic
we got
down
in a
just
super
a wee
chat.
bit, Nate?
My mic is loud?
Yeah,
What?
You're like twice as loud as the others. Sorry.
Well, that's not fun.
No.
Is that better? Is that better?
No.
How does that not make any difference?
I don't know.
Okay, I'm gonna have to do it on Discord then.
Yeah. So we're actually just about to get into our first topic,
better?
Nate. Yeah, that
We
is way better. Thank you.
Yeah, Discord got me blown out. All right.
Actually, you can turn it up just a wee bit now if you want. Just lift
That's
like
too
a
much.
teeny tiny bit. Yeah, actually, Nate, if you can send me an email at gameoverjesse@gmail.com, just so I can reply to it with something real quick. I want to see if you can see something.
You want to know if my eyes work?
Someone in the chat. No. Someone in the chat was talking about something earlier. And
over Jesse at Gmail, right?
yeah.
Oh, nah, that's black.
Can I?
Black
Yeah,
screen.
I just checked it too.
Yeah, so
It is just
that's all black for you
black.
guys too.
Yeah.
All right, never mind, Nate.
No. You no.
All right, I'll send it to
Go
you.
through all this effort.
I'll send it to you.
All this effort. I want the blank black image. Come on.
Okay.
He needs it.
I need it in my life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, thanks everyone in the chat shouting me out. How you guys doing?
Yeah. So our first can you guys send Nate the Google Doc thing? So our
Should be
first news story actually was the link that you sent me, Nate. About the
okay. Yeah, a few days ago.
The clearly false
Fake rumors.
Zelda Direct details.
Yeah.
And I thought we could go over
Unilateral.
this and not just say, because a few things in here are seemingly true, but most of it's fake. So I thought we could go through and just correct the misinformation or debunk it and clear all that up. So this comes from Gadget Crutches, which this is the first time that I've ever seen this website. So yeah, and this comes from Reddit, right, Nate?
Gosh.
Originally, I don't know.
I saw it on Reddit. Pretty sure.
Anyways, the rumored Zelda Direct would feature Zelda Breath of the Darkness and more surprises. Written by Sharon.
You already lost me with
Yeah.
that title.
Yeah.
No, but there are a couple of things in here that are,
Okay.
yeah.
But you have to say it. Breath of Darkness.
Yeah. Nintendo would be ready to show the sequel to Zelda Breath of the Wild. An anonymous source could have set off alarms for the Legend of Zelda fans, although the information should be taken with a grain of salt. I hate that. So here's the thing. All of these websites, these people, the job they have is technically a video game journalist or whatever. And the whole purpose of creative writing or being a journalist and stuff is, you know how, like, even when you were in elementary school and you're first learning how to write and spell words, and then when you're putting together sentences, they teach you to not always use the same word. To, like, if you're talking about something, change it up a bit, use synonyms or something that means the same. That way it's not repetitive. But every single website that talks about a rumor or a leak always says with a grain of salt. And it's the one thing that just gets to me every time. But anyways, so an internal source from the Nintendo marketing team, that sounds familiar, revealing that there will indeed be The Legend of Zelda 35th Anniversary Direct on June 11th, 2021. That is just before the start of E3 2021, in which Nintendo will participate. So skipping through all of this down to the list they have, that way you all don't have to go through any more of that nonsense. Zelda Skyward Sword HD extended trailer global launch on July 16, 2021. announcement for Zelda The Wind Waker Return. Global release on November 13th, 2021. The game features new dungeons. So, stopping at that one for now, because we all expect Skyward Sword HD at E3. Were you trying to talk, Daniel? Or were you muted?
No, I'm just like
Okay.
biting my tongue, like kind of like going like cringing. That's the word I'm thinking.
Yeah. So,
I thought you just turned off your headphones, but I can't listen.
I think it is 100% possible that Wind Waker could feature a new bonus dungeon like Twilight Princess did. Even Skyward Sword, that could be going on for it as well. But, so that part I don't have any problem with. But it's the name, The Wind Waker Return. Not Wind Waker, not Wind Waker HD, not Wind Waker Remastered, whatever. It's Wind Waker Return.
New.
You?
The Wind Waker. New the Wind.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Does anyone have anything to comment on that real quick before we continue down the list?
Yep. Okay, so when Wind Waker HD was about to release for the Wii U, Aonuma said they were not adding, cut dungeons or things like that to the game because they already used those in other Zelda games. Basically, like they couldn't fit the dungeon in Wind Waker, so they went on to add it into other games, Twilight Princess, Skyward Sword, etc., etc. And so we've already played those. We're not missing out on them, really. And that's fine. So if this were true, if they were to add new dungeons, I would expect it to be something, not really a new dungeon, more something akin to the Cave of Shadows from Twilight Princess HD.
Yeah.
I would expect it to be like the Savage Labyrinth in Wind Waker, the new Savage Labyrinth, if you will. New Super Savage Labyrinth XL. That's what I would.
Oh, and it has amiibo functionality.
Yeah.
Yes, you need an amiibo to even get to it.
And the Great Fairy has 2 more arms.
Yeah. I wouldn't expect like full length,
She's a
big,
spider.
long, extended Zelda dungeons that people, get really hyped up for, and that's a big if all of those other things, happen to be true, which I'm skeptical about. That's my thoughts. I'm done talking now.
All right. So yeah, Wind Waker, obviously, if Nintendo does do it, they have had a track record of going with putting HD after the title, or as on Nate's podcast, when he was kind enough to have me on, I think it was you, reminded me that they also, on a lot of the remakes, they don't put HD after it, they just give it the same title if it is like a from the ground up remake instead of more
like
of
Link's Awakening.
Yeah, exactly. So that could be possible. And honestly, if someone told me that it was called New Wind Waker, I would believe it. Especially after the interview from Aonuma or Miyamoto where they said the original title for A Link Between Worlds was The New Legend of Zelda. So, anyways,
I'm glad that didn't go that way.
continuing, Hyrule Village update for Animal Crossing New Horizons. Now, this was a thing. Remember back in the last Nintendo Direct they had, Daniel? I mentioned that I was told that it was going to have Zelda-themed DLC for Animal Crossing, but I didn't believe it. And then
Right.
They ended up announcing the Mario-themed Animal Crossing stuff. So that put more weight towards the Zelda-themed stuff. And then the next one, Nintendo Store receives pins and postcards celebrating 35 years of Zelda. Honestly, Nintendo Store probably already has some stuff that's celebrating the 35th anniversary of Zelda. Announcement of Zelda Dungeon Force, a free-to-play game for Nintendo Switch and mobiles that will arrive in winter. Now, this is another thing. We do know Nintendo confirmed a long time ago that they were working on a mobile Zelda game. It was supposed to start after Mario Kart or Animal Crossing or one of those two. So, theoretically, it's been in development for a while, but they've never mentioned it since then. So they could have gave up on it. Like when Miyamoto mentioned Pikmin 3 or Galaxy 2, or not Galaxy 2, but Galaxy 3 and Pikmin 4. That's it. I got it confused for a second. I always tease Daniel about the Zelda mobile game possibly still being in development, that it could launch. If they do launch it, I would see it launching around the same time Breath of the Wild 2 launches, because that would be the biggest Zelda game to boost hype and popularity, and the thing most likely to get Zelda fans to download a mobile Zelda game. Skyward Sword's not going to do that. So, yeah, Dungeon Force kind of seems like a name they could go with it, but I don't know. And then Hyrule Warriors Age of Cataclysm expansion trailer. So I assume they either had a typo and it auto-corrected to Cataclysm instead of Age of Calamity, or they're trying to say the DLC is going to be called Age of Cataclysm, like Breath of the Wild's DLC was the Champion's Ballad. I don't think they're going to do that. I think it's just going to be DLC Pack 1. Or even maybe Legends, based off of what they did with Hyrule Warriors 1. And then finally, presentation of Zelda Breath of the Darkness, which will arrive in January 2022 worldwide. Now, Breath of the Darkness, like Breath of Evil and there's honestly there's
so many
dozens
bad
and
ones.
dozens of fake, horrible, really edgy names. So yeah, I will add one thing. Going back to the first thing they mentioned about this, that it was supposed to start one day before their official E3 Direct. They could do that, but I think if they did, because Breath of the Wild 2 is what everyone is most hyped about, and then having this weird Zelda mobile game, Skyward Sword HD, Wind Waker HD trailers for Switch, if all of that was in a direct the day before their big E3 Direct, it would suck all the life out of their official Direct. So what I would expect is, whether it's in the middle or it ends with the Breath of the Wild 2 trailer, then when the trailer ends, in the same way that Aonuma in the last Direct said, hey, Breath of the Wild, we're not ready to show anything, expect more details later this year. I expect something like that, for them to say, Breath of the Wild 2, hope you enjoyed the trailer, we will have more to show off at a later date this year. And then whenever that date does come around, that would be when we would get a 35th anniversary Direct, if we do get one at all. So that's the scenario I see. I also don't see Ocarina of Time HD on this list, which I think is more likely to come than the mobile game or Wind Waker Return. So yeah, Rick, since you are our special guest for the day, you can give your thoughts on all of this. And then we'll go with you, Nate.
Our unspecial guest.
No, he's co-host.
No.
He's taking Jude's
I
place.
I can't.
The cringe Breath of the Darkness title. A lot of this stuff in here is just things that people have been wanting or grasping at since the game was announced. So like the Link fighting along Zelda and against a new threat. I could not see Nintendo labeling the new dark threat the Dark Force. That just sounds really bad. Skyward Sword HD, obviously, yes. Wind Waker Return, no. With new dungeons, yeah, no. I could see them doing like what Daniel said with a different like cave or something that you can go through. Hyrule Villager, I see the Animal Crossing thing happening. Maybe not during this, but at a later date in a separate maybe just a tweet or something about it. I don't recall if they did a full segment. I think you were saying something about that with the Mario 35th. I wasn't really paying attention. Nintendo Store receives pins, postcards. Yeah. Like you said, this is probably already up there. Zelda Dungeon Force. That actually sounds like a combination of Triforce Heroes and freaking Dompe's dungeon designer. Sounds like they just pulled that out of their rear end. Age of Cataclysm. Keep it simple. If they're inferring that it's a title for the DLC, like you said, I would think just DLC Pack 1, not Cataclysm. That's going to just confuse a lot of people that don't know what it is. And then, other than that, the Breath of the Darkness, cringy title again. January 2022. I'm saying 2021, 2022 release date. So somewhere in between there. So I mean, nothing new here, other than the outlandish stuff.
Yeah.
All right, Nate, your thoughts on all this? I know you've covered it on your own channel a little bit, and thank you for sending me the link in the first place for us to talk about this. But yeah, what are your thoughts on all this?
I'm just gonna keep it short and sweet. It's all bullshit. None of it's real, so it doesn't matter.
Hey, there he is, keeping it real. Keeping it real.
I know it's weird because I made a video on it, but it's also I just needed some content that day, and any excuse to talk about Zelda works.
Well,
But,
here's the other thing, though, Nate. You're doing a great job because instead of being one of the people that would take a rumor piece clearly made up like this and try to hype it up as much as they can in their video to make it seem like it's possible, you just straight up be like, hey, it's a rumor. If you see it, don't believe it.
Yeah. The man literally puts on a tinfoil hat.
Yeah. So you're doing
best.
I was gonna put it on, but I was looking around my office. I'm like, oh, where is that thing? I think my kids took it.
You're doing the world a great service, Nate. But finally, you, Daniel, tell us how much you love this Zelda mobile game.
Oh, I hate it so much. It hurts. It hurts me. Dungeon Force. Okay, Dungeon Force. It sounds so hokey, but also Triforce Heroes as a title exists, like Rick said. So I guess it could make some sense, especially as far as like mobile game titles go. There are certainly worse sounding ones.
Okay, but Daniel,
But
I have to ask you. Okay,
yeah,
like you say, it kind of makes sense because Triforce Heroes is a thing, but Triforce Heroes made sense in retrospect to what they were doing with the game, right? 3 players,
Right.
you're all heroes, you're all playing together.
a
Obviously,
trio.
Triforce is just a nice play of words because of Zelda. What the hell
Yeah.
is Dungeon Force as a mobile game going to be? Like, are you force in the dungeons?
I don't. What does a link to the past really mean, though? Like context wise, it's
Well, I mean-
like it has some connection in the game. It does have context, but if you just looked at that title, you're like, what the heck is the link to the past? Did Link fall in a hole and now he woke up 100 years ago, or what? What happened? So it's like I don't know. Like I never want to say Nintendo would never do that because they're such wild cards. They will do whatever the heck they want.
It's just a rip off of Dragon Force. So.
But well, that's the thing. But yeah, I honestly, like Nate said, it all seems so fake. Wind Waker Return, no way. The only thing here that feels like also the fact that they're saying the 11th, like right before E3. I don't know. That doesn't sit with me, to be honest. But the only thing in here that feels like it has some weight to it, aside from like the Age of Calamity thing, I think there will be a trailer. Age of Cataclysm sounds too confusing because it's too similar to Calamity. But the Animal Crossing update, I don't think it's going to be called Hyrule Village. They're just going to be like Animal Crossing Zelda update. It's like they did with Mario. It's the Mario update, okay? Sometimes they're just like, it's the April update. Like, they don't give it these fancy names for Animal Crossing. That's just not how their updates go. They're just like, oh, it's December update. That's what you get. So yeah, but I do think Zelda content is coming to Animal Crossing. I do think that's going to be the case. It's just a matter of time. But to me, like it's a no-brainer. It's going to happen. And I almost feel like those things, those little nuggets of like way too plausible not to be true, were just slipped in there to make the rest of it feel more authentic. That's the thing. You can, if you slip in a couple truths, you can get away with some bigger lies. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that was my thought on this, is that they just took leaks and rumors that were already out there, compiled it together, and made up one or two of their own things and try to put it out there. But the thing that you'll know, so that email mentioned the one from the one guy who, from recent events, was apparently right about a lot of stuff. With Breath of the Wild 2, he mentioned the game's name, that if you see any leak that says something other than Breath of the Wild 2, don't believe it, because even they don't know the name. And some of the other stuff that mentioned in there seemed to work out with other sources. So I will say that. And yeah, so if you spot any theories out in the wild, and it's not Breath of the Wild 2, then you can just assume the entire list is fake. So some advice for everyone out there interested in rumors and stuff. Don't fall into the hype and believe the misinformation. But our next piece of Zelda news. Yes, Daniel?
Sorry to cut you off, but I didn't interrupt earlier because I didn't want to interrupt. But we did get another super chat actually from Taker610.
No,
and
Daniel.
He just said the
when
Legend
you get a
of Zelda.
Super chat, you're supposed to interrupt.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I know.
As
I was just
rudely
gonna be.
as you can.
Would you like me to have like a jingle for you when it happens?
We could. Taker610
here
said, Legend of Zelda, Malice at the Palace.
Malice.
For you NBA fans.
I love it.
I'm not an NBA fan, but I do still love it. Just Malice at the Palace has such a ring to it.
Yeah.
That's great. Thank you, Taker. Taker610.
Daniel, would you like to take the second piece of news with the Switch Pro?
Well, hold on. I accidentally unplugged my headphones right as you were talking, so didn't hear a word you said. Sorry.
Cool.
Go ahead.
No, the next thing with the Switch Pro or next gen console, because Nintendo doesn't come out and say Nintendo Switch Pro, but this is an interesting piece, and you can just skip through and read the quotes. I think Nate, you also covered this earlier this week as well.
Just skimming the article, I think I know which one this is. Yes, Nate did cover this actually. Sure. So this is a news article that comes from International Business Times. Sorry, and the gist of it is talking about Switch Pro, as they're referring to it, which is a long rumored title for it. And I'll just select a few nuggets to read here. So Nintendo may have inadvertently confirmed the Switch Pro or the successor of its hybrid console Switch in some of its recent comments. Japanese gaming giant answered some questions during the Q&A portion of recent results call. Insider David Gibson shared some of his highlights when one of the investors asked the company about the areas where R&D, research and development, are being spent. Nintendo answered that it is still focused on software. Also mentioned that some resources are spent on Nintendo Switch Online and new hardware, which, just as a side note, Nintendo's pretty much always working on new hardware, so maybe that shouldn't be a surprise. It's always going to be just a matter of time. Every company has got a new console coming out at some point. But the quote is, "We are still midway through Switch cycle, so software plus outsourcing costs are increasing for Switch, which is the main factor. Also, cost per title is increasing and need a certain level of scale. The company added investing in online as well. Although midway through Switch cycle, it is necessary to invest in the next platform where hardware and software integration will continue." That is the quotes there. There's actually more other rumors that have stronger sort of suggestions about Switch Pro existing, but to me it just feels like a no-brainer. Of course, they're going to want to upgrade their online services now, or they're even like have things ready because when their next console comes out or their Switch Pro comes out or whatever, of course they're going to still have online functionality in those platforms too. But
gotta upgrade that potato.
Yes. Plug another potato into the potato.
And the second piece, wait, were you done, Daniel?
No, go ahead.
I was going to say the second piece of news that I have on this, I don't have it linked. There's something, it's like a month old or more. I mentioned it to you, Daniel, about seeing it on Nate's stuff. Basically, all this comes from Nate because he inspires me. Plus, it's a bit of returning the favor of him covering videos that I made. So, returning the favor is how I look at it. CPU shortage forcing new console is what I wrote. And basically, if I remember correctly, Nate, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, which I mostly am, because I don't know anything. I'm just a guy in Daniel's basement. But there was NVIDIA wanting to end production of the chip that the Nintendo Switch uses. So whether or not Nintendo themselves want to release or announce a new console this early, they may not have a choice, or may be forced into making the announcement or release earlier than they planned because NVIDIA, the company making the chip that literally powers the Switch, wants to move on. And I think I even read an article saying that they were already beginning that step of ending production of it so they can start work on newer, better CPUs. So Nate, starting with you this time, what's your thoughts on these two different pieces of news?
I think it's pretty obvious what's happening here. So on like the Tegra X1 report where like they want to stop making them, NVIDIA wants to stop making them, it turns out that they were just talking about the original model of it, not necessarily the revised one that the Switch is currently using. However, what's interesting that's happened during this whole chip shortage and trying to, get more, everyone's trying to get more chips, whether it's microwave manufacturers, cars, console, GPUs, everyone's trying to get chips and all the factories are maxed out. So what's interesting is as chip technology is shrinking, right? Like the original X1 was made on like 20 nanometer. I think the revised one's made on 14 nanometer. And they're trying to go down from there is the smaller the chip sizes are, the more they can make per manufacturing line. So it actually helps maximize manufacturing and is beneficial for NVIDIA to say, look, the only thing we're even making right now, because the Shield TV stopped using it as well. The only thing that uses the Tegra X1 at the moment is the Nintendo Switch. If they could just get Nintendo to change what chipset they're using to something more modern, that's smaller, that's easier to make a lot of them at once, it's beneficial to NVIDIA. And obviously, NVIDIA is locked into a contract with Nintendo for a certain price on these wafers that maybe isn't that tenable anymore as it once was back when they had a whole bunch of them sitting in a warehouse when they couldn't sell their own Shield TV device. So there's that. That's NVIDIA's side of the thing. They want to stop making them. They want to focus on newer manufacturing processes because that's what they want to get all the lines switched over to. And Switch is selling really well, so they can't have all the lines switch over to it. So there's that. Then from the whole report side, like Nintendo working on online, investing in R&D into the Switch or the next Switch or the next new hardware. I kind of took what he said to be more verification of stuff he said in the past about how we're always investing in hardware. We're always investing in basically we're always investing in ourselves. And now we're here to admit we're halfway through the Switch's life cycle. We're clearly investing in our next platform. And that's that. Like my report on it really focused on the fact that I really feel like Shintaro Furukawa was just like, hey, we're making the next gen system now. We're working on it now. You're not going to see it for 4 years because we're only halfway through Switch, but that's what we're working on. That's what we're researching and developing at the moment. And then beyond all of that, you have to look at the Pro, right? The Pro is like one of the worst kept secrets in gaming, right? The rumors been going on for 3 years. Now they're really, really heating up, right? The rumors are just going and going and going. Reports even from reputable places, right? Bloomberg,
There was the
Wall Street
OLED
Journal.
thing,
Although it's funny when people bring up Bloomberg and Wall Street Journal, it's actually the same guy that wrote the articles on both websites, he just changed jobs. So the reason the Wall Street Journal doesn't report on it anymore is because now he works at Bloomberg. So, I mean, it's really just the same reporter, Takahashi Machizuki, talking about it. But we have numerous, even people in the media, like Jeff Grubb's coming out, and he just did like a Jeff Grubb Game Mess episode, like super early this morning. And he just said, guys, the Switch Pro's coming. I already know. And he literally talks to game developers who obviously have their hands on it now because it's going to come out in this fiscal year. They need to know so they can curve their games to it. So, yeah, Switch Pro is real. It's coming. Nintendo obviously is invested in it, but they're investing in their next platform as well. This is just what they do. Like, for anyone who ever doubts that Switch Pro is coming, look at it like this. Nintendo calls it a home console, but they gave it the handheld treatment by giving it a light version that took away the ability for it to be a home console, which is kind of like what they did with the 3DS when they took away the 3D and gave you the 2DS. Actually, they also took away the clamshell as well before they gave it back to you with the 2DS XL. So they then gave you the new 3DS. In the past, you had the DS, the DS Lite, and the DSi. Nintendo has a history now, the last two generations of handheld hardware, and Switch is something you do hold in your hands, of doing this. So there's no reason to think they're not going to do it. They always do. Cheaper, smaller version first. Then they go bigger, better hardware version later. This is just what Nintendo does. So you don't even have to believe rumors. It just makes logical sense. Then you add on that Nintendo has $800 million invested in the last year in research and development, which is an all-time record high, by the way. They've never spent that much on research and development. So I don't think that's all on Switch Pro. Clearly, one, they have a lot of software coming, right? Like, we don't even know what a lot of the games are, factually, you know? We have rumors and reports. We don't actually know what they're making. So, I mean, I know there's a handful, guys. Splatoon 3, Breath of the Wild 2, Metroid Prime 4, supposedly.
Metroid Prime 4 Double Dash.
Yeah, like, they clearly have some stuff in the works, but there's so much we don't know. So much unannounced game. So there's all that. I mean, I still get people every day who pop into my my comments and they're like, Switch Pro is not real. Switch Pro, like, it's not gonna be called Switch Pro, but it's real. Get ready for your new Nintendo Switch XL. It's coming.
Please don't.
At some
name
point
it that,
next year.
Don't do not name it the new Nintendo Switch.
No, it's going to be the
XL.
Switch Ultra.
Here's the thing. I think it's a dumb name, but they called it the new 3DS, and then the new 3DS dominated sales moving forward for 3DS.
True,
like, it just took over. So clearly the name doesn't really matter as long as the platform is popular.
All right.
Well, they thought Wii U. Well, you know, let's not confuse people here. Let's be real blunt about it. New.
It's new. It's not just a tablet.
And it was weird too that new 3DS worked. I think what they wanted the people to do by like putting that new was, like you said, let's not confuse people. This isn't just a better DS. This is a new platform.
Right.
So, like, I don't know.
No, that's fair.
It
You
is
go
what
to a
it is.
store and you're like, oh,
I'm
I want that
excited.
new 3DS, because you already know what a 3DS is. Now you're hearing about a new 3DS. You go to the store, I want a new 3DS, and they know exactly what you mean because it's literally called that. So
I got a question for you guys.
Yes.
What do you guys
Okay.
think this thing's going to cost?
Same price as the Switch is now.
I would say
Really?
$100
$399.
more.
Yeah, $100
Yeah.
more.
$100. See, I'm thinking $100 more too.
Okay, well, you guys say that. And the thing is, it being Nintendo, and, you know, Nintendo's never one to really lower their price points after a few months like other publishers do with their games going from like 60 to 40. And then a lot of people complain about the price of their consoles and stuff being almost as much as the competitors' consoles, but not being nearly as powerful or having the similar apps like Netflix or Hulu, or being able to stream directly from the console, and just not just in terms of power, but also missing a lot of the features that make the other consoles great. So with Nintendo's track record, I could see you guys being right with it being more expensive than the Switch. But whenever I tried to do a bit of my own research and looked back at basically, if you took the Switch at the manufacturing price that it is, with the same CPU, GPU still in it, but then also added the cost to buy a GPU that would be on par with like the PlayStation 4 Pro or Xbox One X, it would still come in around the same price as the Nintendo Switch does now. And Nintendo could sell that and still make a profit. But if they did go that route, it would be even cheaper than that, because they wouldn't be, like, if they did what I was suggesting, they would basically be putting 2 GPUs in there. But since it would be integrated with the other GPU, then it would be even cheaper, instead of having the CPU, GPU, and then the more powerful GPU. I was just taking the current cost of production and putting it with the new GPU, just like adding it on there. And that's not even like buying it in bulk like Nintendo would do. That was just me going to eBay and Amazon and looking at the average prices of the different GPUs. But anyways, 3 things I wanted to add after Nate finished. One was a long time ago when I used to guest every other week or almost every week on the Spawnwave podcast. I remember we did an episode, and I think Daniel, you and I also covered it in one of our podcasts, but there was an interview where someone at Nintendo had mentioned that they had been asked about it was when rumors were going around about the 3DS being cut out. And they said something about they still believe in dual screen gaming, and they're working on new hardware and new ways to innovate on having dual screens on the same console, that it can offer an experience that no other person offers. So,
but that may have been like PR fluff, like
yeah, like the 3DS being perfect and a second model never releasing.
Right. Or the fact that the Switch was a third pillar.
Yeah.
That was PR. Also, we got another super.
Okay.
From Gibbs, the man himself, the Gibdo himself.
Oh, I forgot. We also had a super chat earlier, but
did we? Did I miss it?
No, never mind. It was the one that you mentioned, Malice at the Palace. Okay, you go, Daniel.
Okay, so Gibbs super chat. He says the new Nintendo Switch U is very real, more real than the good Ganondorf theory, which is also very real. Thank you, Gibbs, for that super chat.
Okay, so I was wrong. We did get a super chat. The chat just pushed it up because it was going so fast. So Lauren,
the chat is bumping,
donated $3 and said Breath of the Wild 2 Flower Blight's Revenge.
Oh no.
Assuming it's a reference to the flower girl. You step on her thing and she summons a Lionel.
A better name than Breath of Darkness.
Where do we get that rune? Where can we find that rune at in Hyrule to where Link can just summon a Lionel? Yeah.
I don't know. Actually, this is off topic, but our good pal Melon Speedruns?
Yes.
He had like a mod or a patch or something where he was using, I'm not sure how he got it working, but he basically used he was able to use the Amiibo rune to summon other characters into Breath of the Wild through some modding magic that he does, and it's pretty cool looking. So just go check that out some more time. But that's off topic. I apologize.
You can do it with the save editor via Cemu. I believe. I don't know if he did it the same way, but I normally do with arrows. So
no, but I mean he was like literally like calling in like the champion characters as like companions in the same vein as like Wolf Link.
Yeah.
Really
or the
cool.
other
really cool.
NPCs that you can run across and help them fight against moblins and stuff. Anyways, thank you, Gibbs, and thank you, Lauren. Nate, did you have any final thing to say on that?
Nope, I'm good.
Rick, do you want to give your thoughts on all of it?
You guys basically ran through it. There's not much more that I could add to that, honestly. I think it's a situation. Nintendo's Nintendo. They're never going to tell us what they're working on, and they're going to be as vague as they possibly can be. They have something in the works. Expect it soon.
All right, Daniel, were you able to give all your thoughts, or do you have more?
The only other thought I have is this is actually something Nate covered on his channel, but this whole article, it wasn't exactly what I thought it was, but there was another thing where there was I want to say a rumor, but it was an investors meeting around the company that does the OLED screens. Nate can talk more in detail about it than I can off the top of my head, I'm sure. But like they even in this investors meeting name dropped the Switch Pro, saying Switch Pro verbatim. Saying like Nintendo is for the first time choosing OLED screens for their new Switch Pro in their investors meeting, and that's like these are just like business. This is business stuff. This isn't like an official announcement or anything like that. But I mean, like these top brass company people wouldn't be, slinging that terminology around for fun. That's pretty well as much solid sort of evidence as you need.
It reminds me of when the Nintendo Switch Lite, the one company leaked all of the different cases for it and screen protectors and everything.
Right.
And even with that leak, everyone still called it fake, that it wasn't true, that it was clickbait.
I remember that.
And then like a month later, it ended up being true. So Nate, since this next one, I believe, was an exclusive that you scored from one of your friends.
Oh, hold on. I'm
Yes?
sorry, Jesse. We got another super chat.
Okay.
I'm sorry to interrupt.
No,
Eduardo in the chat. $3. He says The Legend of Zelda: Return of the Crimson King. I'm wondering is this a really obscure King Crimson reference, as in the band from the '60s, King Crimson? Is it, or is this something else? That's what I'm wondering. But thank you for the super chat, Eduardo. Much appreciate.
Yes. Return of the Crimson King. So Nate, since I believe this was an exclusive piece of information that you got from your friend Samus, would you like to cover it? I just have N64 down here. We talked a bit about it on your podcast, but there was some other stuff to go along with it as well. So
I assume you're talking about the virtual console stuff?
yeah. Well, the not virtual console stuff.
Yeah. So the gist of it is that this Twitter user, Samus Hunter, everything they put out seems to come true. I have an idea of where they're getting their information from, but I can't talk about it. It's just it's very interesting. She went in depth. I guess she mentioned this originally on her Twitter profile. I went back and looked back in October, but she didn't really go into a bunch of details on it. But essentially, Nintendo is supposedly, again, rumor, tinfoil hat it, whatever you want to do. They are supposedly working on a new virtual console like service for the platform that's separate from Nintendo Switch Online. So obviously they have the NES and SNES app on Switch Online. People wait, when's N64 going to drop? Why don't they keep updating it? Why don't they keep adding new games? And it turns out that Nintendo is actually heavily investing in a new service. Because one thing to remember, by the way, and this is something that I don't think people think about too much, is the Nintendo Switch, while it was in development, was Satoru Iwata's baby. Then it launched with Kimishima, right? He was the guy who's leading Nintendo when it launched, and everything was delayed, right? Remember, there was promises they made about how we could, on the app we were going to get on our phone, we could set up lobbies with friends, and we could set up gameplay sessions in the future, and everyone can come join and sign up for it, and you could pre-set up tournaments in Mario Kart. You do all this crazy stuff with this phone app that they just, by the time the Switch Online came, they just stopped talking about it because they clearly aren't doing it. And this feels like these sound like Iwata ideas. Like Iwata had some ideas that they never really realized under Kimishima. And Kimishima, could only do so much because, hey, I'm just temporary. I'm really just here to train the new guy and get him ready to take over because I don't want to be here forever. So the new guy takes over, who's very business oriented. And he goes, hey, Nintendo Switch Online is not really growing, right? We get a little bump every time we release a multiplayer game, but then it kind of goes down after a few months. what's happening with Game Pass? I made a joke about this on Twitter where I said like, oh, Phil Spencer walks into the boardroom to ask if they can bring xCloud and Game Pass, and he leans over to to Shigeru Miyamoto and goes like, what's Game Pass? Oh wait, they have like 30 million users. They keep growing by 5 million users every few months. How? And so the gist of it is that this would be like a Game Pass like service, but for retro games, right? So essentially, Nintendo is supposedly working on a service that's going to give you NES, SNES, N64, possibly GameCube, and even up to Wii at some point. And then go back to Game Boy, Game Boy Color, Game Boy Advance, maybe get into the DS and 3DS eventually. I wouldn't expect those anytime soon, but it would be a service they can carry over platform to platform to platform, which would eventually enable them to add the older platforms when the newer older platforms eventually into the mix. And this wouldn't replace them, by the way, doing HD remasters or 3D All Stars like stuff, because this is just going to be the retro games. They're not going to up-res them or anything for you. Like they did do a little bit of up-resing with the Switch Online. That wouldn't be this. You would just get the games as they were, probably all through emulators, but as they were. So that is, and it would not be like xCloud. You wouldn't be streaming, or I guess PlayStation Now. You wouldn't be streaming the retro games. You would still be downloading them. But what's interesting is they said, but Nintendo thinks it's vital to also offer the ability to buy the games individually. Now, this is all according to Samus Hunter. So you could either pay X amount of money per month, per year, whatever, for this service that has all these virtual console games, and it won't be called virtual console. She made that very clear. It won't be called that. Or you could still buy them individually like you used to be able to do on virtual console, which again is kind of like how Game Pass works. You can subscribe to Game Pass and you can play all these games, but you can still buy them. It doesn't prevent you from buying them. In fact, they give you a discount. If you downloaded a game off Game Pass and then decide to buy it, you actually get a discount to buy that game. So it almost encourages you to spend the money if you just want to keep it, right? You don't want to always pay your Game Pass subscription. You want to keep it. Or if you're worried that the game might leave Game Pass if they cycle it out. It doesn't matter. You could buy it before that happens. Keep it. It seems like Nintendo, maybe because to add some credence to this, obviously we know Microsoft and Nintendo have been working like this together. The whole Better Together update on Minecraft and how they both kind of jointly slammed Sony at the same time for not allowing that update to happen at that time. With all the crossplay stuff, obviously we got the Cuphead and the Ori games over as well. Phil Spencer gushing about Nintendo every single moment he can, putting switches in the background of videos, and who the hell knows what's going on. Clearly, the companies are talking and really close. And I think what happens is Nintendo learns from what's happening at Microsoft and goes, why are we not at least doing this with our retro games? People do not like what we're doing with Nintendo Switch Online. It's not growing. How can we have, almost 90 million Nintendo Switches on the market, but only 30 million subscribers to Nintendo Switch Online? Microsoft has 30 million subscribers to Game Pass, and they don't even have 30 million Xbox Series X's on the market. Obviously, something's going on that Microsoft is figuring out, that Nintendo's like, why didn't we figure this out before then? We are like we used to be at the frontier of offering old games, right? We created Virtual Console. Everybody copied us with their arcades and everything. They copied us. And now they do it better. And we now offer the least amount out of all the platforms, the least amount to be able to play classic games. Think about that for a moment. Like, Wii was awesome. PC was great at the time. Way ahead of all the other markets. Now on PlayStation Now, Game Pass, plus you consider that Xbox is fully backwards compatible, essentially, all the way back to the OG Xbox. Stick the disc in and it works. Nintendo has like this gold mine of stuff they're just not doing anything with. It's weird, right? And like there has to be a reason that they're not, because maybe they're working towards this service. And Shigeru Furukawa is a shrewd businessman, and he likes money. He doesn't want Nintendo to drop off a cliff. This would definitely keep them on that cliff as Switch sales go down, but if subscriptions go up. So we'll see what happens.
Well, you see, Nate, there's one good explanation for this. Nintendo died the day Reggie walked away.
Miss Reggie.
No,
Apparently they knew he was going to retire 2 years before he did, so I don't know about that.
I think we have a couple of super chats really quick. Do you want to get the $5 one, Daniel, and then I'll look for the other one that I think we have?
Oh, Yes, from AJ, who's a good egg, by the way. Egg J. You can't have Mario, Saria, Ocarina, Baronade, Marin, Terran, Zunari, Festari, Gentari, Bellari. Without Ari. All of that, etc. Without Ari. Thanks, AJ. I'm very confused about what you're trying to say.
Yes, AJ's a big supporter of everyone's channels. He's probably been on yours, Rick, and Nate's as well. But we had the other $2 super chat from Sneebs. Did I? No, Smeebs. Okay. Who says, I just felt like saying hi. So, hello. So, yeah.
Hi.
Thank you, Smeebs. And if you want to refresh your page, I updated the description with links to Nate's and Rick's YouTube channels and Twitter for you to subscribe and follow there for more Zelda and Nintendo stuff. So you can do that. Or you can scroll up in the chat and then you can find it there as well. So Rick, our special guest of the day, what are your thoughts on all this? All of the not virtual console and all the different consoles coming to it.
I think this would be an amazing evolution to what we already have with the not the virtual console, but Nintendo Switch Online. They need to kick this thing into high gear, to, like Nate was saying, to get these people over to their service. So I could see it definitely happening. I've been wanting it, and I know we all have been for a really long time. So as for the technical side of it, I'm clueless. I'm just a guy that plays video games behind a desk. So, Daniel, go ahead.
Honestly, the same as Rick. I'm certainly no tech guy, but that's the thing is, like, I remember when Virtual Console like launched with the Wii. Heck, my stepdad, who is absolutely not a gamer, was excited about it. Like everybody was all over the Virtual Console gravy train and wanted. Everyone was hyped to be able to buy their old games, and I feel like now maybe like if they just launched the Switch with the same Virtual Console that the Wii and the Wii U had, I could see honestly like I wouldn't care, and it's just why I didn't care that it was gone for the good chunk of the Switch's life so far, because I was like, what am I gonna buy Super Mario 3 again? Like, unless they're gonna integrate your existing purchases from the 3DS and the Wii U and the Wii over to the Switch, like, no, whatever. I've already, bought all the games that I want to buy, whatever. But that's not the case for everybody, because obviously Switch brought in a lot of people that some of those platforms didn't have, right? So there is that. But I mean, that's just my experience. I'm not everybody. I'm certainly know a lot of people who have just come into the gaming sphere with the Switch, and they see like the classic consoles and they're like, oh man, I used to play that game when I was so and so years old, and I'm so excited. I want to play Super Mario World again. That's so fun. And they don't want to like pay this annual subscription for it. Okay, you can pay like $3, $5, $8, whatever, and just get that one game that you really loved as a kid. And honestly, it just makes sense to let people. I think options are always good. So you could have like a subscription-based service where you could have this full library of games at your fingertips, and that's great, like we already have. Or you could let just people buy the games individually, and I don't see anything wrong with just having the options. I don't think those two ideas have to be mutually exclusive to each other. So I honestly think it would be great, and like was already said, Nintendo and Furukawa, they want your money. So
Yeah, I was gonna say that that's a lot of money that's bleeding out into the secondary market. That the people are buying Wii U's and N64s and GameCubes and selling them for almost probably retail price. I don't know what it's going for right now. I haven't researched that, but I mean, I bought my N64 for a freaking $100 before COVID hit. And I'm sure it went up during the lockdown.
That's another thing too, is that you talk about like going to the second-hand market and stuff like that, but also Nintendo's been like slamming down on ROM sites and stuff like that too.
Yeah.
And I always feel like this is the argument for the services like Steam, Netflix, things like that, is like people who pirate games or things like that. Obviously, Nintendo has a very firm stance on piracy. and which makes sense. They're a business. I understand. I'm not advocating piracy at all. But the best way to combat piracy is to make your service more convenient to use than pirating games. And if that's the case, most people even people who do pirate games will pay for them if it's easier to just do that than to go through all the hoops of emulating or pirating or et cetera, et cetera. And I hope that's something that maybe Nintendo's becoming more cognitive or more aware of. And if they're going to launch this new service, that maybe that's something they have in mind, or maybe that's part of their rationale of shutting down these ROM sites is, well, okay, we're going to take these off the internet because we're gonna give you all these games. We're gonna let you play them now. Hopefully, again, this is me being horribly optimistic. I am a Nintendo fanboy. Absolutely, I am biased, but I really would hope that that's something that maybe they're seeing a little more clearly. And they said if they have such a firm stance on piracy, that's the way to combat people pirating their games. So, yeah.
All right, I got a couple of quick things to add to this, and then our next topic is really quick, and then we'll do our Zelda mailbag where we answer questions from all of you. So get your questions ready if you have any that want to be that you want answered or something you want us to discuss. So 2 things about this. One is if they do add N64 games or other consoles to this new version of whatever they want to call the new virtual console, probably a new virtual console knowing Nintendo, I hope they give them the same treatment that we've seen with the NES and SNES games, multiplayer games, this is also what I said on Nate's podcast, but where they went in and added online support for some of the multiplayer games on the NES and SNES, and I understand that might be a lot easier than adding online multiplayer to Nintendo 64 games, but we have a friend who went in and added online multiplayer to a game that didn't even have multiplayer with Ocarina of Time, and I think he was working on Wind Waker last. So because of him and the teams that he works with, you can play Ocarina of Time, a single player game, online with multiplayer. And the same goes for Wind Waker as well. So that if people can do that to games that aren't even multiplayer, then I could see Nintendo doing it rather quickly with games that already have multiplayer designed for them. So I think that would be a really cool thing. And actually, I forgot what the other thing was, so we can just go straight to the next one. Rick, do you want to take this one? The Zelda anime comments from the Castlevania producer. I have something else to add to it as well that isn't part of this, but I'll wait till you get done.
All right, I'll be quick about it. Editor on Netflix Castlevania discusses the potential for a Legend of Zelda anime. Let's see. There have been plenty of rumors and mumblings over the past few years suggesting that The Legend of Zelda might end up getting its very own TV series. Remember the live-action Netflix show that was going to be like a friendlier Game of Thrones? But no such thing has materialized. That live-action project was reportedly canned by Nintendo after it leaked, seemingly putting the gaming giant off the idea of TV adaptations entirely. But things have changed since then. So this was a comment made by David Howe. Is that who it was? Sat down. Yep. This is Powerhouse Animation's David Howe, an editor on the current Castlevania animated series. Let's see, just go through one of his comments here. Well, I think there's precedent for the Zelda anime. I personally own a couple copies of the Ocarina of Time manga, so they've already adapted it into a serialized manga format, and I think it's something. If something works in a manga format, it would work in an anime. And then there's also the world building. So yeah, basically a Zelda anime. Some comments on this. Coworker. Yeah, I don't know about this. I would love to see it, but you know how the rumors go with these kind of things. So
Yeah. So really quick, the thing that I wanted to add is I think it
go
was
ahead.
also recently there was I don't know if it was an interview or an announcement. Maybe it was something during the investors meeting that came out of that. Nate, you probably know, but it was paraphrasing. It was something like other Nintendo IPs could also become movies, or Nintendo was interested in other using their other games for movies or adaptations if Mario, which is being made by Illumination Studios, does really well. And I think they even, I feel like I've seen a separate article talking about Nintendo hiring the president, or not CEO or president, but someone really high up from Illumination Studios as well. So with those two statements, obviously Nintendo has to have faith in Illumination Studios if they're hiring one of their main people, or it could be completely unrelated. We all know how I like to connect dots that aren't there. But
It's really.
yeah, so I think that's really interesting, and to back it up with what Rick was saying, and then he kind of touched on how a long time ago there was a Zelda Netflix show that was planned before, so it shows Nintendo did have interest in doing it, and I think even Miyamoto himself was making his own little short Pikmin videos, which were kind of cool. But way back then, they had Star Fox in production, they had the Zelda TV show in production, and it seems like it all right now really rides on whether the new animated Mario movie ends up being a success or if it flops. So yeah, Nate, what are your thoughts on all this?
So the Castlevania guy making the comments he did, I don't really. He's just answering a question. You know, he would love. I mean, everyone in the industry, and especially when they're involved with Netflix, clearly would love to work with The Legend of Zelda. They'd love to work with any Nintendo IP. He's just speaking his mind. Doesn't really have anything, I think, to do with much of anything. Doesn't mean something's going to Netflix. I don't think Nintendo's ever working with Netflix again. One of the reasons it appears that the Zelda thing might have got canned because it was in pre-production, supposedly, was because it leaked, and everything on Netflix leaks. So Nintendo don't want to work with a company that leaks, so they canned it. When it comes to the Illumination Studios thing, yeah, Nintendo did factually say, hey, you know, depending on how Mario does, we are interested in doing more animations with our other IPs, and that is important. I also think it's important to note that the person they added to them the advisory board. The advisory board doesn't necessarily work directly for Nintendo. They're just advisors they bring in that are specialties in certain fields that Nintendo is not specialties in. So there's a lot of people on that advisory board. Example, I can't remember. There was someone I looked up that's on the advisory board from Nvidia right now, one of Nintendo's partners, because Nintendo doesn't fundamentally make their own chips, right? Like when they're designing systems, they don't make their own stuff. It's other companies. So having other companies in tell you, hey, it can do this, it can't do this, we can do this for you, we can't do that for you. Having a direct connection like that is important. And so what happened here is Nintendo has this partnership with Illumination Studios and Mario. I think really all it means is if Mario does well, they're gonna make other IPs with Illumination Studios, and Illumination Studio, the guy there is going to be the advisor that kind of bridges the gap, because I don't presume that Miyamoto is going to be able to work like dead close with every IP they do, because he is well past retirement age at this point. You got to think long haul with these partnerships. Miyamoto supposedly is super, like everyone always says that Miyamoto doesn't really do much anymore. He's a figurehead. Not when it comes to the Mario movie. Apparently he's like basically directing the movie. So we'll see what happens. Some people don't think that's a good thing because Miyamoto's not exactly the best storyteller. But that doesn't mean it won't have a good story. I think it's more so this is his baby, and I'm gonna make sure when baby hits the silver screen, that's my vision, and hopefully that vision turns out.
Yeah, I think the interview that I remember talking about that, which touches on what you mentioned about Miyamoto basically being the director, is that Miyamoto is overseeing like almost every single aspect of the script, the story, the plot, the animation, everything. And it even said at any point, if Miyamoto gets a bad feeling about it, he can just pull out without worrying about it. The movie gets canned, and that's it.
Flip the tea table.
Huh?
Flipping the tea tables.
Yeah, exactly. So even though the movie does have an official director and writer and executive producer and other producers and lead animators and everything, they're all basically, even though they don't work for Nintendo, they're all basically being very, very managed by Miyamoto. So yeah.
When it comes to this project, I think it's fair to say they work for Nintendo because this is Nintendo's IP. They can't do anything unless Nintendo says yes. So
I'm sure with their past experiences, they don't want to have another Super Mario Brothers happen again.
Right.
There's
So-
that.
or a
that
Zelda,
movie.
you know.
I wanted a sequel.
Daniel, what are your thoughts on all this?
On these classics, man.
Yeah, but like Nate said, like this guy is just saying like his own opinion. Obviously, this doesn't mean that anything's for sure happening or even in the sphere of it. In fact, even like by his comments, it even seems like he's kind of lamenting that it's not, but he wishes it would. But that certainly isn't evidence because I think Nintendo, like was already said, they tried with Netflix. Things leaked. Nintendo hates leaks. They do not take kindly to that kind of thing. And I just don't. I see them just burning that bridge and being like, nope,
Especially
we're not
to a
dealing
touchy
anymore.
medium. That's a very touchy medium for Nintendo because they've been down. They've been like people are talking about this animated. This isn't the first time Nintendo's had animated stuff.
Mm-hmm.
They've had the
That's
Zelda
true.
cartoon series and Mario
And I
Super
lost
Show.
my TV box set. I don't know
What
where
was
it
the
is.
what was the other one?
Donkey Kong had a series that everyone forgets.
Yeah,
That's
well, that's
true.
because that was like the worst
was-
of the bunch.
Captain N, the game master.
Yeah.
Game Master, that's the
Um,
one I was thinking of. Yeah,
That's
yeah.
the one.
There's
Yeah,
also
so, like-
oh, sorry. Continue.
No, I was
No,
gonna say
go
because
ahead.
like that stuff obviously didn't go over very well, and so if they were ever gonna get back into it again, the last thing they want to do is have it leak. Like as an example, Nintendo announced that they were making this Mario movie. Seen nothing, heard nothing, and we're not going to until Nintendo wants us to. Maybe on Monday.
Maybe. Maybe something's happening on Monday.
Yeah, maybe.
Maybe
That's
something
what
happens
everyone's
on Monday.
saying.
Maybe something doesn't.
I have no idea. Everyone's saying that. I'm like, what?
Cross your fingers.
I keep hearing Monday, and I have no idea what's in reference to at all.
Oh, good. We're on the same page at least.
Yeah. So, before we get to the Zelda mailbag, really quick, if anyone's interested on a unique take on what a Zelda animated series could look like, there was someone who made their own little presentation to show to Nintendo that ended up being rejected. But it looks like it's kind of based off of Twilight Princess, but it has a completely unique original art style. I forgot what the exact name of it was, but you can look it up on YouTube. And it's interesting is all I can say about it. I'm sure you guys know what I'm talking about. It came out like 8, 9, 10 years ago, I guess, around the same time Skyward Sword did, because I remember writing about it for Zelda Dungeon, maybe. Yeah,
What's it called? I don't remember what it was called.
yeah. But it was
Definitely posted about it.
yeah, it was a cool glimpse into what could have been. I wasn't a fan of the art style, but good for that person for at least reaching out and trying. So, Nate, you have access to the Google Doc, so if you can find a question, we will at least do one each, and I want to know what the people in the chat think about this. Usually when we do a question from the mailbag, we all give our answer or opinion on the topic or the question asked. Last week, we ended up, because we were running over, we ended up doing one answer for each person, so everyone got a different question. That way we could quickly go through it. So let us know which you prefer, because one person doing one question, moving on to another question with another person, helps us go through more questions, which means you have more of a chance of getting your question answered or read out loud, and your name getting a shout out. But the person who you may want to answer the question, which is always Daniel, because Daniel's everyone's favorite. For example, I could be the one answering it, not Daniel, but it could have been a question intended for Daniel. So if you're in the live chat, post who you would like to answer the question, and then maybe they'll notice their name and do that. But while everyone else is looking and the people in the chat are typing out their comments, if you are a Patreon supporter or you super chat, you will automatically get your question read out. But our first comes from our friends over at Hard for Games. It says, a question. Predictions for adaptation rate of Skyward Sword HD. This seems like a Nate question. Predictions for adaptation rate of Skyward Sword HD. Most people that have played it have strong opinions one way or the other. I guess that was autocorrected. But is there appeal to a first-time user? Is it enough to move units? And ISO what is appealing?
If so.
Curiosity. What is appealing? A curiosity about the game that will draw new players, and if so, what? Yeah, so Nate, you go ahead and answer this one first. We'll all go and give our thoughts on this one.
Sure.
Because
It's actually kind of
Games are good friends of ours.
interesting.
So,
Yeah,
Nate.
it's an interesting question because I was actually going to make a video on this. It's kind of like one of those, if I don't have videos to make this day, here's an idea. I'm going to do something with it because I love talking about Zelda, and Skyward Sword is one of my favorite games. So it always, because I'm on the board that I played it, I 100%ed it, I beat it. I beat it before most of the world did. One of the games I had a review copy of back in the day at Zelda Informer. So I've been playing this game a long time, and I'm one of the people. I love the motion controls. They're awesome. I didn't have the problems most people did. I've kind of figured out that people recalibrating all the time don't necessarily need to be doing that. They just need to pay attention to when the game is going to calibrate it for you, which often happens when you pull out certain items. I don't know. I literally only recalibrated twice in my entire first playthrough. So I don't know what people were doing, but it is what it is. I'm not going to get into the motion controls too much on that because now we have traditional controls, and so you don't even have to bother with it if you don't want to. But my thing is what's going to make, because he asked, what's going to make it appeal to a first-time user? Not so much people who already played the game. People who already played the game have kind of already decided, do I want to play it again or no? And I think most of the people that say it's not worth $60 are the people who already played it. So when you talk about what's going to make a first-time user appeal to it, it's a very good question. First off is because they didn't play the game, and it's a new Zelda game. Like, why would they buy Link's Awakening? It's an old game. It's been around forever because most people playing Breath of the Wild today never even heard of Link's Awakening, let alone played it. Most people that play Breath of the Wild today haven't heard of Skyward Sword because nobody really even played it back in its heyday. It was a very poor selling Zelda game for being on a system that sold 100 million units because it came out after, this is weird, after Wii U was announced. Then they released Skyward Sword. Not a good move when people don't want to buy Wii anymore because they're waiting for your next platform, which, were they really waiting? I mean, sales data kind of says no, they weren't. Well, at launch, it sold out at launch anyway. So people were just not interested in it. The motion control fad had kind of gone away by that point. And so I think what's going to make new people interested in it is this idea that there's going to be connections with this game to Breath of the Wild 2. And I feel like you're going to see a specific mention by AGNO at E3 when they're talking about Breath of the Wild 2 that you're going to want to play Skyward Sword because there's something that happens in it that's relevant to something that's happening in Breath of the Wild 2. They didn't say that last time, even though something did happen in one of the cutscenes in the original game that referenced Skyward Sword. They didn't say it back then because they weren't trying to sell Skyward Sword. But now there could be an even bigger thing. A certain character could come back. You want the background on that character, go play Skyward Sword HD before you buy Breath of the Wild 2. That's the selling point. This is a vitally they're going to stress this is a vitally important game to the they already kind of did mention it's a vitally important game to the storyline of Zelda. What's going to make people get interested is when they hear something in this game is going to matter in Breath of the Wild 2. Go play it. That's the selling point, and I know Nintendo's going to do it. I just know they're going to do it. They did not have that reference happen in the original game for it not to mean something in the sequel. Because clearly there's something going on. There's something crazy going on, if we're completely honest. I'm going to leave it at that because I just feel it's pretty obvious to me. New game, and EGN almost going to sell you on it big time by saying connecting dots between Zelda games, like us Zelda fans already do.
Yeah.
Right. That reminds me, actually, two points that reminded me of. Sorry, Jesse.
No, you're good.
When Twilight Princess HD was announced, they did a very similar thing. Aonuma said outright, he's like, "Oh, you know, there's going to be moments in Breath of the Wild that if you play Twilight Princess HD, you're going to be like, aha." And I don't know what those moments are that he was referring to. Maybe it was the fact that I don't know, Arbiter's Grounds exists.
It's going to turn you into a portal, and all you'll be able to say is aha.
Oh no, but you know, he said it, and I'm sure it probably drew some people to the game. But also, he kind of already did do that tactic a little bit when he announced the game. For those who don't know, spoilers. I want to say spoilers, but he spoiled a plot point of the game in the announcement trailer, saying, "Oh, this is the game. That's the backstory of how the Master Sword was created." Aonuma said this in the announcement trailer, which is why I feel okay spoiling that here, even though, like, when I first played this game, I had no idea that that's what was going to happen. That was a huge moment in the story, a huge moment where I was, like, literally, like, oh, like, so, like, nerd freaking out. I had no idea that that's what was going to happen, because most Zelda games, you start with a sword, and then you find the Master Sword later, right? I had no idea that you were going to create it, or it was going to be this big origin story and all of that. Right, and so Aonuma, I feel like, even though it was a spoiler for the story, I feel like the reason he slid that in there was so that people who play Breath of the Wild are going to be like, oh my god, this is the origin story of the Master Sword, I gotta play this game. I gotta find out more. But people who are all into the story are gonna just want to find out more about what happened there, or what they missed out on. So, yeah.
Why can't that sword break?
Yeah, exactly. That one sword that doesn't break, I gotta find out.
All right.
Yeah.
Might be a reason. I'm just saying.
Rick.
Several of them.
I'll go after you. I'll go last this time.
Okay. Yeah, it's going to be really a mixture between the marketing and the marketing pushing the story along, you know, and that connection between Breath of the Wild and Skyward Sword. Daniel made a really good point with the Master Sword and, you know, the noises that the Master Sword makes. It's gonna bring that aha moment to people that have played Breath of the Wild going in and playing Skyward Sword. So, yeah, it's gonna be heavy on that marketing standpoint, especially with, like, I think Twilight Princess just included a picture of Breath of the Wild in it, and I mean, that was it. That was it. And we got a couple texture.
Not even like the anything that's actually in the game.
Yeah, it was just from the original trailer that they showed us.
Mm-hmm.
So, but yeah, other than that, I don't have very much more to add to it.
All right.
Jessup,
what was that, Rick?
go ahead.
No, I thought you said something. Anyways, okay, let me think how to word this. So for a while now, on the podcast and scripted videos, Daniel and I have been talking about how, and I think we may have even talked about this with you the last time you were on, Rick, that with Skyward Sword being the game that it seemed like everyone was asking for, because it was like the one 3D game that hadn't received its remaster or remake yet. So everyone was asking for it, and then it was announced for $60, and it seemed like all of those people just suddenly ended up completely going the other way around and not liking it, which I can understand, since it wasn't that popular of a game to begin with, and the fact that it doesn't, from what we know so far, it doesn't seem like it's adding too much new stuff to it, but there will be amiibo support and there could be bonus stuff with it. But personally, I think it's worth the $60. But I feel that Nintendo themselves, and this is the thing that Daniel and I have talked about, and I think I even mentioned it a couple of times with Nate and obviously Rick when he was on the podcast, but Nintendo is going to want to put a lot of marketing behind Skyward Sword to explain or show to all of these people that had these negative opinions why they should like the game, or try to convince them to go out and purchase the game for the $60. We also said that Skyward Sword HD seemed to be, like, if all these crazy rumors are true, like even if one or two of them are true, whether it's Ocarina of Time or Wind Waker or Twilight Princess or whatever, and the reason that we possibly didn't get a Breath of the Wild 2 release date or actual trailer or anything, basically the reason we didn't get anything Zelda related, my conspiracy theory is that Nintendo is saving all of it until really close to when Skyward Sword releases or after Skyward Sword releases. Because if Ocarina of Time HD is announced for pre-order, most people, especially all the people on Twitter that was talking negative about it, are going to withdraw their or refund their pre-order and just put that towards Ocarina of Time HD, or put it towards Wind Waker or Breath of the Wild 2. And I think Nintendo wanting to put all of the focus on Skyward Sword HD and not have these other Zelda games overshadow Skyward Sword is kind of why we haven't seen some of the other Zelda stuff. But with Skyward Sword, we mentioned that we think there's a chance that a Skyward Sword trailer could come this month, because if as much negativity is behind Skyward Sword right now, if Nintendo came out and talked about Skyward Sword for 10 or 15 minutes straight in their big E3 Direct, a lot of people are going to complain even more, saying, hey, that time could have been spent talking about another game, when they don't necessarily realize, no, that's just added. Like, that didn't take away from anything else, that just added on to the overall length. But I think it's a situation like that. And looking at Age of Calamity, which was a Zelda spin-off, I think it's around 4 million sales now, or close to it. But it had over 3 million pre-orders. And that's a spin-off game. We mentioned that's more than Hyrule Warriors on the Wii U, Legends on the 3DS, and the Definitive Edition, or whatever it was called, on the Switch. Like, all three versions of those games combined didn't even match the pre-order sales in their entire lifetime as Age of Calamity did in its short, brief pre-order period. And even Wind Waker on the GameCube, Twilight Princess on GameCube, Skyward Sword on the Wii. All of these games individually, across their lifetime sales, just the pre-order alone for Age of Calamity was more than each of those individually. There's always the meme that people bring up about Link's crossbow training outselling Wind Waker. But the point is, if Age of Calamity, a spin-off, has a completely different gameplay style than Breath of the Wild, and even, like, maybe a few people went in, maybe expecting it to be more related to the type of gameplay in Breath of the Wild, but I'm sure most people who actually watched one or two trailers seen that the gameplay was, just like the original Hyrule Warriors that it takes the name of. So even with it being a completely different gameplay style, and it's still getting that many pre-orders, I could see Skyward Sword, even with its negativity, at least getting close to that in pre-orders, or possibly even more, and then maybe reaching like a total of 5 million sales within a few months after its release. But if if like Ocarina of Time or Wind Waker was announced for pre-order, I think that 5 million would drop down to like 2 million. And you don't think so, Nate? You don't think that many people would take away their pre-orders for Ocarina?
No, I don't. I think we just saw it with Mario 35th anniversary. Got Zelda in the name, people are buying it.
All right.
Literally, like what we forget, and this is something maybe I take for granted because I've been covering the series for as long as I have. The Legend of Zelda is more popular today than it's ever been, and it feels really weird saying that, but it is. 20 plus million in sales. Never in my life did I think a Zelda game would cross 10 million. 20 million plus sales. Just sold almost 4 million copies in the past year. In what? 4th year on the market? 5th year on the market? That's like the cumulative sales for a single Zelda game.
Yeah.
And it did that 4 or 5 years later. Zelda is more popular today than it's ever been. It's doing Mario numbers. I literally don't think it matters. People today, like, oh, Ocarina of Time pre-orders. We're thinking old school, right? I don't think a lot of new kids even know what Ocarina of Time even is. These kids,
I get people on the stream all the time don't know what the heck it is.
Seriously?
That hurts.
No.
That hurts me so much.
No.
Well, we're old.
Majora's Mask, same thing. They're like, what are we
the
playing?
There was the 3DS version, but that didn't even touch the kind of sales we're talking about with Breath of the Wild. Breath of the Wild introduced so many new people to Zelda, they don't know what any of these games are. So they see Zelda in the title, they go, I gotta have it because I loved Breath of the Wild so much. And I think that's going to be a problem for Skyward Sword a little bit. Not to hurt the sales, but to hurt opinions of it again from new fans. It was a problem I had when they released it, and Adrian almost said, oh, some of the ideas in Breath of the Wild originated in Skyward Sword. And it's like, stop trying to make people compare it to Breath of the Wild. They're going to go in expecting it to play like Breath of the Wild. It's not going to. So they're going to buy it, and then they're going to trash it, just like it happened the original time, because you're creating expectations. Don't create those expectations. Sell it on the story. Sell it on the fact that it has dungeons and stuff that wasn't in the original or in Breath of the Wild, and then let it be that. Let them just experience a classic Zelda experience. They should have left it at that. But I honestly think it doesn't matter how many Zelda games they release. Zelda has now reached Mario level popularity. All of it's going to sell. Ocarina of Time? Sure, it'll sell 5-10 million. Skyward Sword? It's also going to sell at least 5 million, if not more. Because think about this. 3D Zelda games, including remakes, always sell more than top-down Zelda games. Link's Awakening has almost sold 5 million copies. Skyward Sword's going to crush it. It's not even going to be close. It's going to be like an 8 million seller. Because all these 20 plus, really, if we think about it, sales of Skyward Sword, minus, take Breath of the Wild, minus the sales, what are there, 16, 17 million people who bought Breath of the Wild that never touched Skyward Sword, don't even know what it is? They're going to buy it because it's got Zelda in the name, and Nintendo's telling them to. So I literally am not worried. Like that, I've seen this argument brought up by other fans too. Oh, they don't want Breath of the Wild overshadowing it. They don't want. None of it's going to overshadow. Zelda's going to sell. If they release 10 Zelda games in the next 10 months, one Zelda game per month, all of them are going to hit 4 or 5 million. No problem.
Would be awesome if they did
People
that.
are thirsty. They are thirsty. We are in a pandemic. People are buying everything.
Right. But at the same time, like, what are the chances if they release, like, say, a bunch of Zelda games in a short amount of time, or they intentionally space them out? Like, do you think that those individual games would sell better spaced out? Like, say they're all gonna sell. They're all gonna sell well. But if they say release Skyward Sword and Ocarina of Time, since that's the comparison we're making, they release Skyward Sword this summer, but then Ocarina of Time, like, by the end of summer. Do you think that people are gonna buy both? Really, like, not everybody. I would buy both, but not everybody is made of cash. People sometimes have to be choosy.
I
Sometimes
didn't know
people
you
take
were
the
so
internet.
wealthy, Daniel.
Or I'm definitely
Made
not,
cash.
but you know,
I look at it
it's
like this. What else is there to purchase that month? We've seen the
True.
Switch consistently have big game month after month after month after month, and we keep buying it.
True.
Look at the sales charts. We keep buying it. It doesn't matter when they come out. We've had multiple games come out in the same month, and they sell 4 or 5 million units. Gotta remember, there's 90 million Switch owners, 20 plus million Zelda fans. Not all of them are going to buy every Zelda game, but will enough of them buy each one of them to sell 4 or 5 million if they came out month after month after month? Yeah, we just saw literally up-resed emulator games packaged together sell almost 10 million. I don't know why we're doubting that Zelda games that look like they might belong per se on the platform. We'll see. I don't know what they're going to do with Ocarina of Time. I don't know if they're going to HD it or what's going to happen there, but I'm just saying that I honestly don't really think it's a problem when Link's Awakening just gets slapped out there and all of a sudden that sells the best it's ever sold. What are we worried about? People are thirsty, man. Zelda
Right,
is just
Nate.
that big of a deal right now.
I have a proposal.
If Mario can do it every month, why can't Zelda?
okay.
I have a proposal, Nate. Okay,
Yep.
so two sides to this. A sort of a bet that I want to have that'll end at the end of August. So how many... Because after listening to you, I think you're right. But I still think this would be fun.
Hard to quantify because we've never seen Zelda be this popular.
Yeah. So with
So under old assumptions,
Right.
Right. So with pre-orders of Skyward Sword HD, how many, rounding up to the nearest 100,000, how many pre-orders do you think it'll receive, and how many copies do you think it will sell after it releases until the end of August? So like a month and a half on the market.
So a big thing to remember, if you just kind of glance at the sales charts for a lot of games that aren't necessarily considered evergreen, like obviously Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, that's an evergreen kind of game. But when you look at Link's Awakening, sales fell off a chart after a couple of months. Like it just tanked, right? It got all its sales in the first, basically during launch and the month after. So you look at Skyward Sword, I think any Zelda game they release that's not a new one is going to have that happen. Even Age of Calamity, it's fallen off a cliff. People aren't really buying it. That's what we can expect with no matter what they release, whether there's other Zelda games around it or not. That's one reason why I don't think it really matters how close together they release them. People are done buying the game by the time the next one comes anyways. So, pre-order wise, I have no idea. It'll probably have 1.5 million pre-orders worldwide. It'll probably be hard to get the physical version day one at certain retail outlets because that just
You
happens.
think it'd
with
just
Switch
be 1.5
games.
million in pre-orders?
Yeah, I think it'll just be 1.5 million. I don't think it's going to be anything astronomical because you got to remember that one, digital is now a thing. People don't feel like they have to pre-order games anymore. They just don't. And we're coming out of a pandemic, and people are willing to go to the store and just figure they can walk in and pick it up. As an example, you can pre-order it at Walmart, but why would you when you can walk in the store and get it for $10 cheaper on launch day if you don't pre-order it? By the way, that's a trick if people don't know. Walmart sells all games $10 below MSRP if you don't pre-order it and you just walk in the store and buy it on day one.
True.
I don't know how many people know that. Save a little money.
It's good to know
So,
because Walmart
for
has
those
a
people
pretty
that think
terrible
Skyward Sword's
track record.
overpriced, you can get it for the original price on Wii at Walmart.
Yeah.
Not online, though. You gotta go in store.
Everyone in the comments, if you're watching live or if you're listening on iTunes, leave a review and let us know what you think as well. Or if you're watching the edited version of the video, then in the comments below, let us know how many pre-orders you think the game will get. I'm going to say, I'm going to stick with what Age of Calamity did. and say about 3 million pre-orders and about 1 million sales after pre-order until the end of August is what I'm going to go with. And if you're closer to being right, Nate, you can have your choice. I will either order you the best pizza that you can think of, or I will pre-order you a copy of Breath of the Wild 2 when it's announced.
I was going to say, good luck ordering the best pizza I can think of. It's Fat Tomato out of L.A.
Wait,
I don't know
Jesse,
how you're going to get that.
Huh?
did you say you're going to pre-order it for him? Were you not listening to what he said?
I can send it
Obviously,
to
you
you.
just walk in a Walmart and buy it. Don't pre-order.
All right. But still,
Here's the thing. I appreciate I'll buy you the copy of the game. That's cool. And I'm not trying to
I thought you were
flex
going
over
to say
here.
you appreciate pizza.
But I'm gonna buy the game anyways. I don't really need you to buy it for me. It's okay. Keep the money. Buy it for
fine.
somebody else and give it away or something.
For fun bit, then. For fun.
Bragging rights.
So
This is
that's
why
my
Eric and
thoughts.
I, when we have bets, there's like a punishment. That's what happens if you're right. Or
You on your stream you were talking about the spicy thing.
spicy chip challenge. Yep.
Yeah, that you had planned.
Oh, I gotta order that. Thanks for reminding me. I forgot to.
Before we wrap up, I want you to let everyone in the chat know all the cool stuff you're going to be doing for E3. Since you weren't able to come on at the very beginning to talk about it, so after we do the mailbag, I want you to let everyone know, because everyone who's watching, if you stay until the end of the Zelda mailbag, just by tuning in to Nate's stream, this is just a hint, or a little tease, if you will. Literally just by tuning in, odds are that you're going to win something. Just by the virtue of being there watching. And maybe leaving a comment in the live chat to let him know that you're there. Because he's got so much awesome stuff to give away. I don't know.
There's 3 live super chats, Jesse.
Okay. Okay, so Nate, while we go through these super chats, if you haven't picked out your question previously, then pick it out. And we'll do the thing where we only do one answer per question each. That way we can go through them really quick.
Sure.
All right. So Daniel, super chats.
Okay. The first one, $20 from Marsupial Gamer, says, "Hey guys, no question/comment." No, this is a comment. No question though. "Just keep up the good work." Thanks, Marsupial. Appreciate that. Love you. And
Wait, didn't Marsupial already give 20 or 25?
did he in this stream? I don't think so.
Okay.
Unless we just failed. Unless it's this one you're thinking of, because I had to scroll up for it.
All right.
Austin in the chat, $5 says, what are the top 5 wants for everyone presenting this stream, for all 4 of us, for Breath of the Wild 2? Little off topic, but I've been curious for a while.
Oh,
just 5. We'll just have to go not in depth, just 5
Rapid
things.
Rapid fire.
Rapid fire.
You can go first, Nate, and then Rick can go. Our special guest.
I thought I was gonna make it a challenge by having me go last and have to be original. Dungeons. Period. More voice acting beyond the main characters. I want a fully voice acted game. Let me see. I want to see the hook shot come back. I don't care. You can climb everything. Give me the damn hook shot. I want to see it rain a little bit less, please. Just a little bit less, right? It can still rain. A little bit less. Maybe the hook shot's a counter to that. I have no idea. And quickly for number 5, I want to explore the idea of having some sort of side quest that lets you potentially hand a Joy-Con to another player and you need 2 people to complete it together. Optionally, of course. I kind of think like an Andrew and Kathy situation, except, you can have 2 people actually play the parts at once. Optional. That would be really cool.
All right. That was 5?
Yep. I counted them all.
Okay. Rick?
Okay, I would like to see different kinds of mounts, like a loft wing, for instance. I would love to see something that we could get on and fly around Hyrule. The flying machine comes pretty close, but that's a glitch, so Let's see. I would like to have blacksmiths where you can repair weapons, so you don't have them breaking all the time. Maybe reinforce them, like something that we saw with shields in Skyward Sword. Let's see. Petting dogs. That's another one.
Yes, Rick wins.
I would love to see instruments make a return. Some type of playable musical instrument would be nice to see. If it's optional or if it's actually a part of gameplay that you're, forced to do, either way, I'd be happy with it. And I want Link's green tunic to appear in the main portion of the story and not you have to go complete a bunch of stuff to get it. But that's just me.
All right, burgers.
Okay. I know Nate said hookshot, which is something I've touted a lot as wanting. So I'm gonna actually switch it up and say the grappling hook from Wind Waker, because I've been replaying Wind Waker for some videos I'm working on. And here's the thing: the grappling hook is different. It is a different item, but actually, I think in that game, it's used in so many unique and interesting ways. You have to have something that it can wrap around to actually hook onto, and you can swing or just climb it or raise and lower yourself. And there's way more you can do with the grappling hook than the hook shot, unless you have two hook shots, then that wins. But the grappling hook is a great item, and then it showed up in 2 games, and then we haven't seen it before, haven't seen it since, and it's one of the best items in Wind Waker. So I would love to see that return. I also want to see, how do I phrase this? Some kind of like, if this is a big if there's the whole rumors of like playable Zelda sort of thing, some sort of like tag team system where it's like a multiplayer's optional, but you could just as easily like tag team or switch, or even if there's just scenarios where you have to play through like a certain mission as Zelda, say Link's unconscious or something like that. And if that's the case, or if there is any playable Zelda, I think that she should have the Sheikah Slate and the abilities from Breath of the Wild 1, which is weird to say out loud. And Link will have his own sort of unique arsenal that's totally different from the first game, like not even the same. I want some kind of online functionality that's not multiplayer. In for example, we saw like Miiverse stuff and some of the Wii U ports, things like that. Not necessarily that, but I just think some way to connect to online would be really cool. How many now? That's 3. I want some, I don't know how they would do it. I don't think it should just be like all your hearts or whatever, but some integration where it reads your save file from Breath of the Wild, and if you have save data, something carries over, or you get some bonus, or something like that. This is something actually during Rick's stream we were chatting about a little bit, but it would be really cool to see a way to not necessarily import save data. I don't think you should start out with all of your hearts and stamina for Breath of the Wild 1, because then what do you need to improve or strive for? But some sort of way to move something between the games. And for number 5, I'm really struggling to just not say something that was already said.
Daniel.
Yes.
Really quick, because a lot of people have this opinion. No, I'm not naming anything, but a lot of people have.
But that's my 5.
This opinion. But Swifter 1243 says they didn't add the hookshot because it made exploration obsolete. Do you really want that for some nostalgia points? So Daniel, can you please explain how it doesn't make exploration obsolete?
The hookshot is very situational, which is how exploration has existed in every Zelda game that's had the hookshot before. It's so you cannot just hookshot onto any wall. You cannot just hookshot onto any rock surface and skip climbing that mountain. The hookshot, for example, in the N64 games could only hook onto wooden objects, trees, torches, treasure chests, things like that. Or the claw shot was even more situational, in which there was like special either graded things like fences or like claw shot targets, right? Things like that. So I really, especially considering the state of Hyrule in Breath of the Wild, I really think that having a hookshot item would not be game breaking or make exploring obsolete. Especially if there was, say, like a limit or a cooldown or something like that for it. So yeah.
And would you say if Nintendo were to add some, just going out on a limb here, not that they would, but if Nintendo were to add some special item that you could just use anywhere and then constantly warp back to that same spot over and over. Do you think that would take away from
the travel
exploration?
medallion? Are you talking about the travel medallion in Breath of the Wild?
Do you think that could take
No,
away
of course.
from exploration?
It's just a convenience.
Do you think
it's just convenience?
a master cycle would take away from exploration?
No, because you have to feed it. You have to feed it Boko horns to keep its feeling. No. That's the thing is, I think systems like this could always be integrated if maybe the travel medallion's not the best example because it doesn't negate exploration because you have to explore somewhere to be able to warp to it. You still have to go to that place at least once. Yeah. But I mean, in things like other items, most items in Breath of the Wild, there's always a limit or cost to using everything. And so if you have a hookshot that has either a durability and then you have to like fix it or a cooldown period, like Rivali's Gale, how could the hookshot be more game breaking than Rivali's Gale? Well, they gave Rivali's Gale, like obviously that's super OP move, but okay, they gave it a cooldown, so you can't just spam it all the time as a cooldown period. And I don't know. I just feel like the hookshot is not as game breaking as people think it is. So.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, even using a save editor and flying around Hyrule, the map is so big, the hookshot is not going to break exploration like that. It's just not going to happen.
Absolutely.
It's so big.
Yeah. Yeah. The thing is, like, it's all discovery, right? When you find new things, doesn't matter how you find it.
So my personal thought is, in situations, it could be game breaking, or cut down on exploration in very certain situations. But if someone mentions claw shot or long shot, hook shot, whatever, and your mind goes to, oh, this is taking away from exploration or it's whatever, then you're not thinking of how to use it in a creative way. You're just thinking of ways to try to get to use it. And like, it could be something that you don't even get towards the end of the game when you've already explored everything. So I guess going into my 5 things, Rick's mentioned the Loftwing. I hope we get a Loftwing. The same way Twilight Princess had Wolflink amiibo. I'll try to go through this really fast. Same way Twilight Princess had Wolflink amiibo that connected to Twilight Princess and Breath of the Wild and summoned in Wolflink. If Breath of the Wild 2 did the same thing with Skyward Sword and connected to it with the Loftwing amiibo, and it let you ride a Loftwing in Skyward Sword, that's ridiculous, but the mechanic is kind of already there since you can already kind of glide around anywhere, and a lot of people bring up Breath of the Wild already had something like that with when you're flying around with Teba, to get to the Divine Beast, and you can see Hyrule beneath you. I think that's really amazing, but if you could free roam instead of being on rails, I think that would be even more amazing. And then even if it was like you get access to it with the amiibo, but you can't get access to it until the map's already completely explored. That way it doesn't take away, who knows? Or maybe you can't get to certain areas if it has, like if you haven't got that Sheikah Tower found or whatever this game has to fill out the map. If you haven't gotten that section, then maybe the Loftwing's afraid to go in it, kind of like Epona stopped an Ocarina of Time before you could go into anywhere except Lake Hylia. 2, I want the Minister return, like they showed in concept art for the original game, and the little teeny tiny houses. I want Kokiri to return, like they had the Kokiri champion in the Creating a Champion or Masterworks book. And before they replaced them with Koroks, I want underwater exploration, which no one said, and I am very disappointed.
That was my last one. I said swimming.
Like I said, no one said it. And my last thing is
that they've never done it well.
Daniel kind of mentioned this, which we were talking about it during Rick's live stream earlier with Majora's Mask. We were trying to come up with different ways that Breath of the Wild could connect to Breath of the Wild 2. Age of Calamity had a little neat way, more of like a bonus for people that connected the save file from Breath of the Wild to Age of Calamity. But if something like, the example I came up with is Link's house in Breath of the Wild. Right now it's just for decoration when you go through and fill it up with all of those weapons. But in Breath of the Wild 2, since it would be insane to bring over your entire arsenal, if you could go into Link's house in Breath of the Wild 2, and those same weapons would still be there, and then you could kind of use it to transfer over your favorite weapons instead of having to go out and find them again. I think that would be a really cool thing to do. Or if they even included chests inside the house for you to put other items in that you can't hang on the wall, and then that is a way to literally transfer things over to Breath of the Wild 2. Yeah, that's my thing. And we got a super chat. Rick, would you like to read the super chat?
HD remake. This is from Mike Productions. OOTHD remake or remaster needs Zelda content.
I disagree.
Yeah.
Because Zelda is a
Master Quest, right?
Or you could put Master Quest, sure.
It's a version of Zelda.
Yeah, exactly.
I think everything that really, or most of everything that was planned for Zelda already got integrated into future Zelda games, and I don't think we're actually missing anything. It's not in that game, but I think, and this is Tony, Hard for Games Tony, in a conversation with him, he phrased it in a way that for me really kind of set things into perspective, and that he said, people look at Zelda with rose-tinted goggles because we never got to play it, and we just have all of this leftover anticipation and, you know, hopes and dreams and wants and all that stuff. But the truth of what it actually was just some additional sprinklings of content into Ocarina of Time. And Nintendo always reuses those concepts. They're very open about the fact that they've already used those concepts. Some of Zelda became Majora's Mask, etc., etc., etc. So I don't think we need it, aside from maybe put Master Quest. That's cool. But because I like hero mode, hard mode, etc. So
yeah, if we're gonna add anything, let's add something that's already out there.
We have videos going really in depth, discussing the different variations using interviews from Miyamoto and others at Nintendo. So there's a few different videos that we have where we use those interviews to kind of describe, because anytime someone talks about Zelda or Zelda 64 or Beta Ocarina Time, whatever, they always have like a certain version in their head that they're thinking of, and then someone else has a completely different idea. And it's because Miyamoto himself in various interviews had very different contradictory things that he said about it, which is why it's so confusing. But if you go like year by year and like add in all of those interviews, you kind of get sort of an idea of the different stages of development that it went through. But in the end, we kind of, in a weird way, did get Zelda, and then so a lot of the other content went on to Majora's Mask, and even stuff like the reed whistle that you would originally summon Epona with was used in Twilight Princess in a different variation. So it's all there, spread out in other games. And in Japan, cool fact, Master Quest is actually titled Zelda, or Zelda Ura, whichever way it is. But yeah, this is cool, I guess. Yeah, I guess that's it. Nate, do you have your question picked out?
Yeah, Nate was the other super chat.
Oh yes, sorry.
Thanks, Nate.
What happens? What happens Monday?
What happens?
Okay,
what
so
happens
in the same vein that I got a really obscure email, and Nate, Rick, and Daniel can all testify how many times I went back and asked them, "Hey, have you heard anything about April?" No one had, and then I finally decided to put it in a rumor video. And the day after I put it in a rumor video, because I emailed the person back, said, "Hey, are you sure something's going to happen in April?" And they were like, "Yeah." And then I uploaded the video. They could have been completely making it up. It could just be coincidence. Probably is just coincidence. But the coincidence is still there that the day after I uploaded that video saying, "Hey, I was told something's going to happen in April," the next day all of the Champion Series first 4-figure statues was announced. So coincidence, maybe. Were they completely making it up?
But what's happening on Monday?
That's the question. What is happening?
That is.
I mentioned a hint that I had to Rick and Daniel earlier, and kind of hinted towards it to Nate. But if you go look at the tweet, you can kind of get an idea. We don't talk about stuff that has to do with that, but that's for other reasons.
Secret to everything.
Super chat.
Also, we got another super chat.
Yes.
Yeah.
Nate, do you want to read the super chat? Do you?
Sure.
You wanna have a go? Okay. And then I promise you can do your question.
We'll let you talk now.
mean,
I swear.
I don't even remember what I picked at this point. Mike Productions, the $10 super chat chimes in. It says, totally forgot about Master Quest. Okay, I think a lot of people that point proven. People don't realize they played Ocarina of Time before. But I wouldn't mind any leftover unused Ocarina of Time assets used in a future port of an HD Ocarina of Time port.
Mm-hmm.
Great content. By the way, Jesse, much love.
Oh, thank you. For that $10, I will add to this, Mike. You did get a little sample of 𝐼𝐧𝐬𝐢 Zelda, because one of the ideas they had for it when it was for the disc system was to have sort of a gauntlet style thing where you could go through and try to beat each boss faster and faster each time. And they added that into the Ocarina of Time 3D version. So you did get assets that went unused added into Ocarina of Time 3D.
Also, we got another super chat. Again.
Guys, Nate has to do his question. Thank you, though. But Daniel, you want to take this one?
Oh, sure. Eduardo again. Thank you, Eduardo. Do you think, $5, do you think that the high expectations put on Breath of the Wild 2 will have a negative impact on the game? Just like Metal Gear Solid 2, MGS2. I feel like that happens a lot with any form of media. People hype themselves up. People get... You know what? It happens with just Nintendo Directs. They put too much expectations. They get themselves way too overhyped.
Look at what happened with Age of Calamity. That's a perfect example.
Yeah.
A lot of people were upset about that game.
But I honestly think the game is going to be so good anyways that I don't... Breath of the Wild... it was the most hyped game, and it did not disappoint me on any front. It's not a perfect game, by the literal sense, but to me, it's a perfect game. And I feel like the sequel, maybe I'm just too blinded by my fanboyness, but I don't think the sequel is gonna disappoint.
All right.
No matter how high the expectations are. I can speak, I swear. I'm gonna stop talking.
All right. I want to give mine really quick because it's really short. Daniel can confirm this, and maybe Nate, Rick, you all can too. I've mentioned a bunch of times that I think Nintendo purposefully left out a bunch of stuff from Breath of the Wild, the original, because they're doing all this stuff, adding all this stuff to Breath of the Wild, that you would have to come up with some unique, great idea for the sequel. So instead of coming up with all new ideas that would be brand new to the series for Breath of the Wild 2, the sequel to this game that did so amazingly well, or that they thought was going to do so amazingly well, they purposefully held back stuff like underwater exploration, possibly even themed temples or weapons like the hookshot. That way, in Breath of the Wild 2, if all else fails, then it'll still be what everyone loved about Breath of the Wild, but also now it has all this stuff that everyone was begging for to be DLC in Breath of the Wild, where they wanted DLC for underwater exploration, they wanted themed temples and stuff. So I think Nintendo may have, it's my weird conspiracy theory, may have just purposefully held back all of that stuff, some of which was already in the game. That way they could put it in the sequel. That way, at the very least, if people are like, this is just more Breath of the Wild, it's boring, repetitive, then they still have those new gameplay mechanics that everyone was literally begging for. And 2, I think Breath of the Wild probably, at this point, may have had more hype than Breath of the Wild 2. Maybe not to the casual fans, but at the time, the Zelda fans were really, really hyping up Breath of the Wild, calling it the ultimate Zelda game. It was going to bring the best parts of every Zelda game. It was going to be the first Zelda game made in real HD. All this stuff. And it lived up to expectations. And I don't think there's really a chance Breath of the Wild 2 could not live up to expectations. So that's my thought. Nate, what's yours?
Oh boy. Can I plead the fifth? Say I don't have one.
Sure. Do you really want to?
Yes.
Okay.
Since it's getting late and I gotta go in like a half hour.
All right. Rick.
I'm gonna pick a real easy one. Cooper, when Breath of the Wild 2 inevitably gets released, do you think people will still complain about the price of the game? Will it even cost more than the usual $60? I think it's gonna be set at that $60 price point, but yes, people will complain about the price of the game. They always do. There will be no justification for this one because it's not a port, it's not a remake, it's not anything like that. But yeah, they'll still complain.
All right.
I could see it possibly being 70, but I don't know what's going to happen with the Switch Pro or with the next version of the Switch.
Yeah. So, Nate, do you have a question? Since we've already answered so many questions through super chats, we'll just do like one question per person, and then after we do the next 3 questions, we'll end it. This was originally supposed to be about 2 hours. It's going on to around 3 hours. We don't have 𝐓𝐼𝐢 here to whip us back on topic when we get lost or sidetracked. So, Nate.
I could have did that if you wanted me.
Oh, yeah. Well, you're supposed to be filling in her shoes.
Well, you didn't tell me I'm supposed to literally be.
No. I'm just joking.
Pull that up.
But
Crack the whip, Nate.
Someone get Nate a wig and.
So, and remember, everyone who's still here, you're really going to hear all the cool stuff that Nate has planned for his big live stream. But Nate, do you have your question?
On the document? Sure. I guess I'll throw something out there. Let's go with Andra Pika 1337 so Leet said, do you have thoughts about Nate Drake's claim that Ocarina of Time and Majora's Mask will just be emulated ports that are only exclusive to the Switch eShop? I did talk about this on my channel once, because Nate Drake, also known as Nate the Hate, I think he prefers that because that's what he goes by on his YouTube channel. Nate Drake is his username, I think on Reset Arrow or something. Yeah, I think that this is a reasonable take. He wasn't saying it matter of fact like this is what's going to happen. It was this is what I think is going to happen. Now he has some connections into the industry. He's been right on stuff he's kind of hinted at before, and maybe he does have some insider sources that are like, hey, they're not really doing anything with Ocarina of Time except just finally bringing it to the eShop and doing it as a separate release, and for some reason they won't give us the N64. But who knows? It's kind of like all the speculation around 𝐓𝐿. What's 𝐓𝐿 doing? I don't really factually know what they're doing. We just have a lot of speculative and rumored guesses of what. Same is true with this. We don't really know if they're going to do anything with these games. So this is just another thought process tossed out there.
All right. Daniel, do you have a question picked out?
Oh, you know what? I was too enthralled. I was
Okay.
getting swooned by Nate's voice. So
while you look for one, I'll do. One of my friends has here. Still Sane Shane says mailbag. I just posted an article today on another Zelda podcast, which is his Zelda podcast. Maybe some of you have heard of it. And my biggest question is, in the sequel, can we befriend dogs and create a sled team and use your Wolf Link as the lead dog? Then, if this is the case, would we in fact then befriend other creatures like the sand seals? Could we have other modes of transportation? What other new modes of transportation will be added? Breath of the Wild has a lot of really cool puzzles that allow you to get really creative. It could be possible that I don't think you'd get a team of dogs. That's a pretty big jump from not being able to pet dogs. But I could certainly see an animal pulling a sled, whether or not you make it or it's already there, constructed by someone else, like the handmade boats that you just randomly see plopped everywhere. We do see wagons in the game, I think. So yeah, instead of having a horse pull it, I could see it would be a cool idea to have dogs or Wolf Link, if he returns, to pull you around on it. It could be really fun. Maybe the dog could jump on the sled with you when you go down a hill, like when you're shield surfing. It'd be really, really cool. So Daniel, have you picked out yours?
Yes, even though I saw the question,
and that's the end of the podcast, everyone. No.
Oh,
I'm sorry, Daniel. We love you.
I know.
Okay. Now, which one did you get?
Is from Hatchling DM. They asked, do you think it's possible Ganondorf would be an ally to Link in the sequel to Breath of the Wild? To which I say, no, I do not. Because the trailer shows his zombified corpse and he awakens with huge evil eyes and he's like, and the room falls apart and collapses, and no part of that trailer do I look at that and be like, that's a good guy right there. He's going to be on my team. But just, no. I also just, in general, hate the good Ganondorf theory. So no, I don't.
In reference to the first article that we read, the Dark Force.
The Dark If only you knew the power. No, that's yeah. I hear people talk about like good Ganondorf a lot as like a concept or whatever, and like sure it works in your fan art, but like I really don't think that that's where this game is going, and I don't know how that became so popular from that trailer, because if you watch the trailer, there's nothing in it to imply that Ganondorf, the zombie dehydrated zombie man himself, is a good guy in that game. There's no reason to believe that. But that's just me griping as a fanboy. So.
All right. Well, finally, everyone is already very aware of 𝐷𝐸𝐴. He's been on the podcast a few different times. He's been on other videos as well. But Nate, I know you've been on the channel before. You've very graciously invited me on the, would you call it a reboot of your podcast?
Yeah. I mean, I try not to make that big a deal out of it, but when you watch like old episodes of like the first 125 or so, and then you come and you see, why is this episode 1? Watch it. You'll see. It's like an entirely new podcast. So.
Yeah, you put a lot of production value into it with like almost completely I think it's the room that you're in. It looks completely
Beautiful.
Different than anything else that I've seen. You invited me on, was it the second episode with Miss Click? Or the first episode?
Yeah, I think first episode was �HMK, I think was the first one.
Yeah. Okay. So
then I think you and Miss Click for week 2.
Yeah. Which Miss Click is a friend of all of ours, I imagine. She's been on the podcast a couple of times. So you guys should go check her out. Bonus plug for her. But you also invited me on this past weekend, maybe? Was it this weekend? I don't remember the exact date. Anyways, the point is, you're very nice, invited me on 2 different times. I love coming on, talking to you. I'll talk to anyone about Zelda, as long as they're not too negative. But you completely blew my mind. I know everyone talks about, oh yeah, I got a huge thing planned for E3, blah, blah, blah. You know, the kind of stuff that I say. But Nate has like dozens and dozens of amazing partnerships for E3.
I don't know what dozens and dozens. Maybe a dozen.
Okay, maybe.
I don't know. It's growing by the day. I have a couple more that we're talking about today.
All right.
Is this where I talk about it?
Yeah. So briefly go over the other types of videos people can find on your channel, and then the type of content your podcast specifically does, and then all the stuff about the great giveaways and everything. So,
So, man, we are putting on a show. That's what I'm kind of calling it. It's tentatively called the Nintendo Prime E3 Extravaganza, but every content creator live reacts to all the stuff, including Game Over Jesse, who absolutely watched his stuff. He's going to be live reacting to Nintendo, probably with, I assume, the usual cast of characters. On my channel, we'll be live reacting as well to Nintendo and everyone else, Microsoft, Ubisoft, Sega, whoever else is presenting. Whenever the schedule finally comes out, we'll be live reacting to all of it, of course, like everybody else. Except we're not just live reacting. That's like, it's part of the show. It's an important part of the show. That's why we're all together as gamers, is for this gamer Christmas event. But we're going the extra mile. So yeah, we'll have pre-shows and post-shows and podcasts and post videos. But we are doing gamer competitions. We are having competitions between me and the host with punishments. We talked about it briefly a moment ago with the Hot Chip Challenge for a loser. The competitions where you get to play Smash and other games against me or Eric on that stream. If you beat us, you win prizes. And the key thing here is that's not it. We have partnered with, I think, 13 companies right now. Plus, we have over $1,000 of our own money put into the pool. We are giving away hundreds of things during this stream, from consoles. We're giving away controllers. We're giving away other accessories, collectibles. I mean, I can grab a couple of things. These Zelda hoodies that they don't even make anymore. We're giving away these bad boys. These are brand new. We're giving away that $100 Fusion controller that just came out. That technically hasn't even released yet. It comes out in 4 days. I got it. It's right here.
Unboxing of it on your channel too, don't you?
Yeah. We're giving that away. Giving away a collector's coin from E3 2016. We're giving away a bunch of stuff. It's crazy.
Actually,
a whole bunch of copies of games. We have so many game development studios that are partnered with us. We'll be giving away a copy of a game that isn't even announced yet. Will be announced at E3. Can't talk about it. NDAs suck sometimes. But I can mention that we're going to do a giveaway for it because you don't know what I'm talking about. It's just an unannounced game. So, like, there's just a lot of stuff that we're doing. It is $3,500 plus. Like, things are getting added every day. Plus, in terms of total value and stuff we're giving away. Trying to give back to gamers during this pandemic. It's been hard. I know we're starting to come out of it. I'm glad the world is opening back up as people get vaccinated. But it's still one of those things where I want to give people a reason to smile during E3. If the announcements don't make you smile, maybe you walked away with a $50 eShop gift card. Maybe you walked away with a Zelda coin. Maybe you walked away with a copy of a really, really kick-ass game that you might have never tried if you didn't win. I just want to make people smile during E3, even if the announcements don't make you smile. And hopefully the announcements, combined with the giveaways, combined with the gaming competitions and the conversations and the special guests, Game Over Jesse. Yes, that's Game Over Jesse. He's actually going to be a special guest coming on. We don't have the E3 schedule yet, so we don't have anything scheduled yet. He's going to do his own thing for Nintendo, but he wants to come on and maybe even be on for live reactions to one of the presentations that happens. So we'll talk to him about which other one he might be interested in that might have some background that he might be able to react with us to. And we're going to have Andres Restart on. HMK is going to be on. Still working on some others. Maybe I'll get RMFA Sean. Maybe I'll give you a little... I'm trying to get as many guests as I can.
Always available. So
I've been dealing with a lot of business emails right now around this event. Like, it's crazy. Every single day. I mean, I actually got a response from Nintendo when I contacted them and said, hey, we're doing this thing. You want to give us some products? And they're like, maybe. We'll get back to you. So I don't know if Nintendo's actually going to give. I don't expect them to. But the fact they said maybe, Golan Harris is like, well, maybe. Just hold on. Like, oh, okay. They're going to ask and then probably come back and say no. But it's just kind of cool. Like, we're trying to partner with as many indie studios as we can. And we're not just, with some of the indie studios we're partnered with, I don't want everyone to be like, oh, we're just grabbing every bottom barrel game on Switch and just giving it to you. We're making sure every single studio we partner with, their games are critically acclaimed by the fans and the media and are high quality products, so much so that we're making sure we play each of them ourselves to ensure we're actually giving you good games. We don't want to give you, a game that costs $15 on the eShop, but it ends up being a game that's just really shitty, and you're gonna quit in 30 seconds. Like, we want to make sure you're getting something quality from us. We want to partner with quality partners. So yeah, we're trying to really just give back as much as we can and make E3 fun. The gaming competitions, the banter, the reactions. It's just supposed to be fun. So even if E3's announcements are lame, the stream should be a hell of a lot of fun and really entertaining. You might see me get pied in the face or something, you know. You might see Eric beat me in something, and I gotta somehow pound down 3 straight shots of tequila, and the last time I had to do that, I threw up. So who knows what's gonna happen? This is the craziness that happens at Nintendo Prime. Plus, like, if you guys check out any of my streams from now to then, I stream every single night, Monday through Friday. Tomorrow night is my podcast. I do like all these crazy synth things and like fun stuff and party stuff and all these different. I have a whole stream deck set up with a whole bunch of stuff that we have fun with on our streams. So yeah, hopefully you decide to come spend a little bit of E3 with us. Not do all of it. There's a lot of other content creators you probably want to check out too. But if you stop by, yeah, there's probably a good chance you're going to walk away with something. I think right now, I know there's going to be at least 342 winners. I think I was saying 45 before. I've just counted today. It's 342 winners. But again, it's growing every day. My goal is to get it up to 500 winners, but we'll see. So,
yeah, as I mentioned earlier, the crazy thing for me was during, I think it was when I was on your podcast, there was 200 or 300 or more people watching live, and you made the comment that,
It was 329. It was actually our most watched podcast ever.
Yeah.
So thanks for making it the most watched podcast ever. Game Over Jesse. That's the power of Game Over Jesse.
Nothing to do with me, but thank you anyways. I'll accept any.
Well, you were on and suddenly.
But the thing that blew my mind was your comment that even with it being your most watched podcast ever, as you say, even with that, your comment on if all of those people that were watching then were watching one of the E3 streams, every single person would basically be leaving the chat with something.
Yep. If that was the only crowd we had, every single person would win.
And some people, multiple things.
Yep.
So yeah.
Now it's over the course of 4 days, though. It's just not all given away in one day. We're covering all of E3, so it's a big 4-day event. Right now, the plan is 12-hour live streams, all 4 days.
All right. So Nate, with that out of the way, what kind of other content can people find on your channel?
So there's a running joke out there that I'm Mr. Rumor Prime right now. It's one of those. It's kind of the season of the rumors and the leaks and all that as we ramp up towards E3. This just happens. And obviously, with Zelda's 35th anniversary, that's really ramped up a lot of speculation, a lot of fake leaks or legit leaks, whatever it might be, because people are excited. So, and I'm a big Zelda guy, so I like covering lots of Zelda. It's no surprise the Zelda videos do good on my channel, considering my background in Zelda. So, I do a lot of Zelda stuff, a lot of Switch Pro stuff. I cover pretty much anything Nintendo. I don't cover like every piece of news that ever comes out. I cover what interests me. And I consider, obviously, does it interest me, will it interest you? I did a video the other day on Animal Crossing, a video on Donkey Kong. I just do a wide variety of content. A lot of it, I'm going to let you know right now, if you just want like news reported to you or the rumor reported to you, and then that's it, don't watch me. Go watch like Game Explain or something, right? I like creating discussions around the topic. So some people always say, man, I'm 5 minutes in and I still don't know everything. I'm like, well, no, you don't, because the whole point of my videos is I'm passionate and I'm discussing this stuff as I talk about it. That is the point of my channel. It exists so I can get out what I want to say about stuff. And hopefully people seem to be enjoying it because the viewership's going up, the subscribers are going up. Not near 100K like Mr. Game Over Jesse. You guys, if you came over from my channel to watch and you're not subscribed, as Reggie says, what's wrong with you?
Thank you. Another thing that I want to say is that for the people who don't know, I mentioned this briefly on your podcast, but Nate, he used to run probably the biggest Zelda website for a period of time, at least fan-ran Zelda websites. And it was talking to him and everything, and just like all the stuff that he was doing, all the effort he was putting into the overall Zelda community, that was one of the things that inspired me to try to get more involved with the Zelda community as well. So he's got a large part of the motivation behind the videos and stuff that you're watching now. And what was the other thing? The thing that I really like about your channel, as you mentioned, it's more discussion based, not just like straight news, like bulletin points, and then that's it. With a lot of your videos, it does the same thing that I like to say that I pride myself on, with the way that Daniel and I started doing the podcast, which is where we made it more community focused, which is what you do on yours, because most of the time it's just you on your live streams going over everything. So even with me and Daniel, like even if it's just us, there's going to be like half the time we're talking to each other, answering each other. But on Nate's videos, like a lot of people watch all these YouTube channels and they never like have their name mentioned, they never have their comments read, they never have their questions answered. It's almost like they're not even there from an interactive standpoint. But on Nate's channel, the whole thing's basically like you get the news you want, you get the rumors you want, you get all the other stuff that you want. But there's also the community aspect and the fan viewer interaction that a lot of people want. So that's what I really like about it. And
yeah, someone mentioned just today. I didn't really think much about it because I do the channel the way I do it. I don't really think. I think it was a user named the Chad. He commented on one of my community posts and he said, "You're just different than even other YouTubers at your size. Like, yeah, everyone answers the super chats. Everyone answers, all that stuff. You don't care if it's a super chat or not. Sure, you'll do your. I do have a special little celebratory thing I do with my super chats now that are pretty fun. But I don't ignore people. I get to as many questions as I can. I try to interact with as many people as I can, and it's actually something I'm nervous with E3, because if somehow we get the most watched live stream that we've ever had, because right now the most watched we had was the Xbox Series X launch. I was waiting to pick up my launch system, and I was just streaming from my phone, and we had like 900 plus live. If we're anything like that, I don't know how I can possibly keep up. The super chats obviously will have priority because it highlights it, not because I'm trying to ignore the chat. But I'll try to make sure I get some of the people that aren't necessarily super chatting or donating as well to get their commentary in. I read off their commentary. I try to answer questions. I try to involve the community, and I'm going to have entire sections, even during my E3 show, that's just dedicated to community interaction. Like Eric and I are going to talk. We're going to discuss. Our special guests are going to stuff. And then there's going to be like, hey, here's a 20-minute segment where we're just talking to you guys and seeing what you guys have to say. Not like the whole, sometimes like you watch IGN and like, oh, let's see what the community says. And then like someone like that's off camera, like grabs some random comment that was said on Twitter and throws it up. And like the hosts weren't even involved in picking it out or anything with it. Like they have no, I read the chat. I read as much of the chat as I can realistically do while putting on the show. And as Jesse said, when I stream, it is me. I rarely ever have anyone else on, which is why I have so many entertaining aspects to my stream. Especially since I got this Stream Deck XL. Let's just say since I got the Stream Deck, which I actually got for E3, I've been having way too much fun. There's just way too much fun. I'll put it this way, you're going to get serenaded if you come to mine. Probably multiple times.
I'm going to tell everybody that wants me to sing to come to your streams.
And you mentioned you have your next podcast tomorrow, right, Nate?
Yeah. Next podcast is tomorrow at 8 p.m. Central Standard Time.
All right, and I've been posting it in the chat, yours and Rick's YouTube channels for everyone to subscribe to, but also your Twitter profiles for everyone to go and give you guys a follow. It's also in the description for the people that if it gets lost in the chat or something, it'll always be there in the description. But for the people that may just listening to the audio version on iTunes, where can people follow you on Twitter or Instagram or whatever social media platform that you would want them to follow you on to keep up with all the stuff that you're doing?
For me, you could follow me. Well, if you're listening to the audio version, you want to find my YouTube channel, you can just type Nintendo Prime, or you can go to youtube.com/c/Nintendo Prime YT. Also, I think youtube.com/Zelda works still for some reason. YouTube hasn't gotten rid of that URL yet. You can follow me on Twitter at Ninty Prime, so NITY Prime, because Nintendo Prime was taken, and now that account's been closed, and Twitter won't give it to me. Why? You could follow me. One thing I've actually been experimenting with. Follow me on Instagram. So it's just Nintendo_Prime on Instagram, and the reason I bring it up is I only have like 900 something followers there, but I get more interactions per post than I do on Twitter, where I have like almost 14,000. It's almost like Instagram actually does a good job. Actually, I know this because I get notifications on Instagram. That's why Instagram gets better interaction. The notification system's not broken. Weird, since I think that's ran by Facebook, and Facebook's notification system is broken, but Instagram's isn't. I don't get it. So yeah, follow me on Instagram. I should probably start posting my videos probably there more often.
All right.
That's it for me.
Oh, sorry, Nate. What was you saying?
Nope, I'm good. All
right. So
I'm good.
All socials, you guys can follow me over at RMFH Gaming. And on YouTube, it's /RMFH Gaming. Everything else is the same, so across the board.
All right. Daniel, where can people find you?
Right. All social medias, Twitch, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, everything is at Capt Burgerson, CAPTBURGERSON. I know how to spell my own username, as if there was a burger and he was the captain of the ship, and that's my dad. So I do live streams on my Twitch and my YouTube channel. Every Wednesday is Breath of the Wednesday. So we always stream Breath of the Wild on Wednesdays. And then my friend 𝐓𝐿𝐼𝐻, who's usually on this podcast but not here today, co-streams with me on Saturday nights. Lately, we've been doing Minecraft of all games, just because it's one of those games where, like, we're doing like Mario and stuff like that before, but this is just one of those games where we can really just like mess around and just do ridiculous things, and we're not like pressured into achieving a goal. So it's just mostly just for fun nonsense. But if you like Zelda content, please consider checking my channel out, because I already do a lot of work here on the Game Over Jesse channel, so you're probably familiar with what I'm up to or what I'm all about. But the stuff I've been doing on my channel, it was very infrequent until January this year, in which I decided I was like, I'm going to start posting as frequently as I can on my YouTube channel. And I basically went from like almost nothing to now we're at almost our first 1,000 followers, because I actually decided to post some videos. So that's good. But we're going through a series it's almost like a walkthrough, a review, a retrospective, theory, speculation, architecture analysis, music appreciation video on every Zelda dungeon individually, and it's just a good time, and they've been a lot of fun to work on. And actually Rick here has even helped supply some of the footage that I've needed for some of those videos, so it's a lot of fun. Please consider giving it a look, and if you hate it, don't worry about it, don't subscribe. It's okay if you hate it, that's okay, but if you do like it, then you know what to do. Yes. And I love you all.
So really quick, Daniel is like really, really close to 1,000 subscribers. Which, for those people that don't know, when you get to 1,000, it's one of the first major goals that YouTube looks for when providing you with different features and stuff you have access to. There's over 130 people that are insane, and we love you, that are, for some reason, stayed through and listened to all of the podcast with all of us. But if just half of you went, and please all of you do, but if just half of you went and subscribed to Daniel, he would be way past that 1,000 subscriber goal. So please, I posted a link in the chat. You can go subscribe to him. There's a lot of other Zelda content on there as well. And yeah, everything from me, really simple. Everything is just at Game Over Jesse, YouTube, Twitch, Twitter, Instagram, the Facebook page we have. So yeah, and thank you all for watching. And if you're listening on iTunes, please leave a review, because it's helping us get to a certain goal that we're trying to reach. So please leave a review on iTunes if you're listening. And if you're not, go listen on iTunes. Yeah, have a good night, everybody.